Hello, everyone. Omni-sensei here with What If I Was Reborn as the Ultimate Spider-Man, Part 4. If you enjoy this content, smash the like button. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the original story linked in the description.
I sat in class, my mind far from the lecture. My thoughts swirled around the strange dream I had today. Or more like a vision. Is this like Madame Web's power? Or is it Madame Web's power? Each one more vivid than the last, filled with faces and moments that left him questioning everything. He couldn't shake the memory of his fight with Harry. I had sounded so remorseful, almost like I regretted what had happened between them. Was that the future? Our future? I wondered to myself. Or just another timeline where things went south? I'm not an idiot who's going to ignore the fact that the multiverse exists and that this was just a possible outcome. But can I really ignore these dreams? I like Harry, and I really don't want to fight him. Not now or in the future. My mind drifted to Gwen. I could clearly see her face and the wedding ring on her finger. Did I marry Gwen in the future? I thought, my chest tightening at the thought. I never even thought about marrying in my previous life, but now those thoughts are growing across my head, as I then start imagining Gwen in a wedding dress. We're spending our lives together. Or is this just some alternate reality? The uncertainty gnawed at me, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. I never really saw Gwen or any of the girls I hang out with in that light. But now I'm thinking about my future outside of Spider-Man. Gwen had always been a part of his heart, and now this dream had resurfaced memories he tried to bury. Fond memories of Peter and Gwen. The OG couple in the comics was destroyed due to Stan Lee's absence. Yeah, that's right, Stan Lee wasn't even there when Gwen was made to die. And Stan Lee based Gwen on his wife, and now people are throwing Gwen in the gutter with Norman. Then there was Jean. I was so confident the Phoenix wouldn't show up anytime soon. I scoffed at myself. Yet, in my dream, I looked about 20, and it seemed like I was preparing to face her. Am I really going to fight her? I shook my head, smirking slightly. Good luck with that, Parker. Why not take on Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet and Darkseid with the anti-life equation? My thoughts took a darker turn. He remembered the dream where his body was being ripped apart, and the goblin stood over him, hitting him with a crowbar. A shiver ran down his spine at the memory of the brutality. Getting the Jason Todd treatment? Great. Then my mind went to Goliath. Wait, did I actually change my name in the future? Or is this a whole other universe? And why Goliath? Isn't that one of Pym's nicknames? Regardless, that's not what's taking my focus. The idea of him training Laura Kinney Talon, Wolverine's daughter. Yeah, that's definitely not happening, I mused. Though admittedly, the scenario reminded me of a fanfiction I'd read late at night when sleep wouldn't come. Spidey's Life's a Game. What a great read. One of my top 5, actually. And then there was Gotham. Killing the Joker? I chuckled internally, but there was a weight to it. Going to the DC universe isn't exactly on my to-do list. And killing the Joker? What is this, Welfu? I don't want to be in his situation. Somewhere deep inside of me, I felt a jump of excitement at the idea of going through what Y/N went through in Gotham. But I quickly snuffed that feeling out and thought better of myself. The idea of stepping into that world, killing Joker and surviving, having the world's superheroes, villains, and criminals in between, seemed too far-fetched. I might have powers. It doesn't mean I could do better than him. I don't even know how his story ends. Yet the dream had felt so real. My thoughts were about to drift to MJ when something cold and sticky touched my face, snapping me out of my internal spiral. I flinched slightly, a little startled at the cold touch, and my senses were not alerting me. I blinked and looked up to see Michelle standing there, holding 2 smoothies. She handed me one casually. I exhaled, calming down as I gratefully accepted it. Thanks, I said, looking at the blueberry smoothie, my favorite. It's for luck at the expo, Michelle said, her voice as nonchalant as ever. I smiled, taking a sip. I appreciate it. The cool, sweet flavor hit my tongue, grounding me a little. We chatted for a few minutes, mostly about the upcoming expo and random school stuff. The conversation was easy, a nice distraction from the dreams weighing on my mind. But even as they talked, part of me couldn't shake the feeling that these visions meant something more than just fleeting nightmares. Soon enough, the bell rang, signaling the start of class. Peter took a deep breath, trying to focus, but his mind still buzzed with questions he couldn't answer. The future, the dreams, the people in them, it was all tangled up in his head. But for now, at least, he had a smoothie and a brief moment of normalcy. Something the comic Peter Parker would have loved. Now sitting in computer science class, I found myself next to Clayton, who was in the middle of explaining his advancements in sonic technology to me. And, believe it or not, I loved every bit of it. In the comics, Peter Parker was all about science, but his passion leaned toward biology and chemistry. Sure, his biggest achievement was creating the web fluid, but honestly, I'm not that Peter Parker. The one whose body I'm inhabiting, well, technically, the one who died from the spider bite and whom I took over, had a broader love for all types of science. Physics, tech, engineering, chemistry, you name it. Lately, I'd been slacking a bit on studying chemistry and biology, which wasn't like me at all. I'm definitely going to need to catch up on that soon. But right now, listening to Clayton break down this tech that would have gone way over most people's heads had me absolutely hooked. The way he described his sonic advancements had me thinking of 100 different applications, from crime-fighting gear to everyday tech improvements. He even sent me the blueprints for what he was working on, and I couldn't help but add my 2 cents to the conversation. We bounced ideas back and forth, refining concepts and thinking up new ways to push the limits of what sonic tech could do. By the end, I felt like I'd actually contributed something worthwhile. All in all, it was a great talk. I found myself energized and more motivated to dive back into the parts of science I'd been neglecting lately. There's something about collaboration like this, hearing someone else's passion and innovation, that makes you want to push yourself even further. As I walked into chemistry class, I spotted Gwen and started chatting with her before class officially began. But soon enough, I had to head over to my seat next to my lab partner, Tandy, also known as the Future Dagger. Right now, she's just the kid with drug problems and a seriously bad attitude. We've barely spoken beyond what's necessary. Despite promising myself I'd help her out, I've been ignoring her for the most part. Honestly, I have no clue how even to begin fixing the mess she's in. Sure, I have that video of when she took my hand and made me grab her, but what's that really going to solve? Nothing in the long term, that's for sure. So, I've just been doing all the work on our lab assignments, keeping my head down, and avoiding any confrontation. I know she's struggling, but between school, Spider-Man duties, and whatever else is happening in my life, I can't even think about getting involved right now. I get it, helping her might be the right thing to do, but I'm already drowning in responsibilities. So, for now, I ignore her and move on. There's only so much I can handle, and getting tangled up in her problems isn't something I'm ready for. As I walked through the hallway, I spotted Jessica Jones and Jean Grey deep in conversation. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but when I got close, I overheard Jessica saying something that caught me off guard. "Clayton's adorable," Jessica said, glancing at Jean with a smirk. Jean looked surprised. "Wait, I thought you liked Peter?" Jessica shrugged, her tone casual. "I still do. I mean, Peter's great and all, but the chances of him ever noticing me? Slim to none. Besides, Clayton's cute. He's got that same nerdy charm, you know? Like Peter." Jean paused, thinking. "Do you think Peter likes you?" Jessica shook her head, laughing a little. "Nah. Peter's got way too much going on. And anyway, I don't have time for crushes that go nowhere." Jean and Jessica chuckled at that, but then Jessica asked, "So, what about you? Do you like Peter?" There was a short silence before Jean sighed. "I don't think so. I admire Peter, but I don't think he'd feel the same. Besides, he's wrapped up in his own world." With that, they both walked off toward their next class, leaving me to digest the conversation. Before I could wrap my head around it, MJ appeared next to me like she always does, a bright smile on her face. "Hi, Tiger," she said, playful as ever. I smiled weakly, not exactly loving the nickname but going along with it. "Hey, Red." She looked at me curiously, noticing my distracted vibe. You okay? You look a little spaced out. I forced a smile in thought. Yeah, just thinking. We haven't hung out much lately. Yeah, I know, she said, her smile dimming a little. You've been swamped with hero stuff, Horizon, school. I get it. But I miss you. I nodded, feeling a little guilty. I miss you too, MJ. We talked for a bit about the expo coming up, both of us excited for it. But then, as I was about to tell her something important, the image of her from that dream, those lifeless eyes staring back at me, flooded my mind. I froze, my mood crashing instantly. MJ, always perceptive, noticed the shift right away. Peter? What's wrong? I shook my head, trying to push the memory aside. It's nothing, really. She raised an eyebrow, clearly not buying it. It doesn't seem like anything. You look like you've seen a ghost. I tried to keep my voice steady. I just have to go. We'll talk later. Okay? MJ frowned, concern in her eyes. Peter, if something's bothering you, you can tell me. You don't have to carry everything on your own. But I couldn't bring myself to say it. I couldn't talk about that dream. Thanks, MJ, I said softly. But I gotta go. Without waiting for her response, I turned and headed down the hallway, trying to shake the haunting image from my mind. As school ended, I headed straight for the alleyways, trying to get some peace before suiting up and swinging out of here. But that image of MJ still haunted me, tearing me apart from the inside. Because of it, I couldn't talk to Gwen or anyone else for the rest of the day. I was too shaken. I need to let this go. Just as I started to change into my suit, my spider sense buzzed faintly. Someone was following me. I paused, slipping back into the shadows of the alley. A few moments later, Flash Thompson and his group of goons stepped into view. Ever since I humiliated him at school, Flash had been itching for payback. I couldn't really blame him. It was embarrassing to watch, and even worse for him to live through. And to top it off, I'd stopped helping them with sports plays, which only added fuel to the fire. Flash marched right up to me, his face twisted with frustration. He stopped a few feet away and, to my surprise, got into a boxing stance. His feet were bouncing, arms up, his body swaying rhythmically. I raised an eyebrow. Boxing, huh? Nice form, Flash. When'd you pick that up? Flash smirked, confidence oozing out of him. You think I'm just gonna sit around after you humiliated me? Nah, I've been training, Parker. And today, you're gonna pay for what you did. I sighed internally. The last thing I wanted was to deal with Flash's ego right now, but I couldn't help but notice he had actually improved. His stance was solid, his movements sharp. Look, Flash, I said, trying to defuse the situation. I really don't want to fight you. Oh, you don't have a choice. Flash shot back, his eyes burning with anger. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You made me look weak. Yeah, and beating me up in an alley is really going to fix that. I muttered under my breath, but Flash was too riled up to hear. Without warning, Flash lunged at me, throwing a clean jab. It was fast, but my reflexes were faster. I dodged to the side effortlessly. Seriously, Flash, we don't have to do this, I said, dodging another punch. I get it, you're mad, but this isn't going to solve anything. You just don't get it, do you? Flash growled, throwing a hook that I easily sidestepped. You always act like you're above everyone else, Parker. Like you're untouchable. That's not true, I said, dodging another punch. But trust me, you don't want to do this. He ignored me, his attacks growing sloppier as his frustration mounted. His grunts egged him on, laughing and taunting me from the sidelines. Flash threw a wild haymaker, and I sidestepped again, watching as he stumbled forward, off balance. I could have easily taken him down right there, but instead, I just let him regain his footing. Why won't you fight back, Parker? Flash shouted, breathing heavily. What's the matter? Too scared. I shook my head. I'm not scared, Flash. I don't see the point. Flash's eyes narrowed, and he lunged at me one more time, but this time I grabbed his wrist, twisting gently but firmly, forcing him to stop. Enough, I said quietly, looking him in the eye. This isn't going to help you. It's just going to make things worse. Flash struggled for a second, but I didn't let go. Eventually, he stopped fighting, his chest heaving from the exertion. Why are you doing this, Parker? Flash muttered, his voice filled with confusion. Why won't you just fight me? I released his wrist and stepped back. Because it's not worth it, Flash. You're not my enemy. You never were. Flash looked at me, his face conflicted. For a moment, it seemed like he might say something, but instead, he just turned away, frustration still boiling under the surface. His grunts followed him as they left the alley, casting one last glare in my direction. I let out a sigh of relief and shook my head. Boxing classes, I muttered to myself. Of all the things. Then, I left out of the alley, leaving Flash and the whole situation behind me. For now, at least. After wasting time with Flash and his gang, I rushed home to prepare for the expo. Once I stepped inside, I was greeted by the familiar warmth of Aunt May and Uncle Ben. We had already agreed to meet at the expo later, so I waved hello before heading to my room to grab my clothes and lab coat. Just as I was about to shut the door, I heard a gentle knock. Aunt May entered, smiling, like she always did whenever we talked. Hey, sweetheart, she started, leaning against the doorframe. Excited for the expo? Your project sounds incredible. Yeah, I hope it goes well, I replied, trying to keep the conversation light, but I could tell from her expression she wasn't here to talk about the expo. Sure enough, she quickly pivoted to a deeper subject. You know, Peter, I've been thinking about Gwen, and MJ too. I tensed up immediately. Gwen and I are just friends, Aunt May, I said quickly, hoping to dodge the topic. She raised an eyebrow. Just friends, huh? Well, what about MJ? You haven't mentioned her in a while. Is everything okay between you two? Her words hit harder than she knew. My mind flashed back to my nightmares. MJ's lifeless eyes, the weight of my failures as Spiderman, and everything in between. I turned away from Aunt May, not wanting to show how much it bothered me. I'm starting to think there is no future with me and MJ May. Aunt May, of course, didn't know about my dreams. To her, this was all about my feelings for MJ. She stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. Peter, the future is not written in stone. It's not decided. What matters is what you choose to do with it. Her words hung in the air for a moment, and I felt a strange kind of clarity washing over me. As Aunt May left the room, I sat on the edge of my bed, still thinking about the nightmares. But instead of being paralyzed by fear, I found myself considering her advice. The future wasn't set in stone. My nightmares didn't have to define what happened. I had a choice, and maybe it was time I stopped letting the weight of those visions control me. Taking a deep breath, I stood up and grabbed my lab coat. Whatever the future holds, I'd face it on my own terms. I just had to keep moving forward, one choice at a time. I ran down the stairs, gave Aunt May a quick kiss on the cheek, and pulled Uncle Ben into a big hug. Whoa! Uncle Ben exclaimed, patting my back with a grin. Where's all this energy coming from, Slugger? I chuckled. Aunt May gave me some good advice, but then I glanced at the clock, realizing, shoot, I'm gonna be late. I rushed out of the house and headed straight for the Stark Expo, adrenaline pumping. After changing out of my spider suit and slipping on my glasses, I was only a few blocks away. Deciding to run the rest of the way, I suddenly heard a scream. A tiny, selfish part of me wanted to ignore it, just this once. But the bigger part of me, the part that knew better, took over. I changed direction and headed toward the source of the scream. In a dimly lit alley, I came across a scene I'd seen too many times. 3 big guys were harassing a blonde girl who was holding a small dog in her arms. I was already thinking of a way to suit up when I saw one of the thugs reach for her. Screw caution. I spoke up. Hey, that dog's mine. I called out, making everyone freeze. The thugs looked confused, clearly unsure if I was serious or just crazy. From what I could gather, they were bullying the dog, and the girl had stepped in to save it. The girl screamed for me to run, But then she took a good look at my face. The biggest guy, the leader, I assumed, walked straight up to me, sneering. "Afraid not, buddy. We found the dog. It's ours now. And we're about to find out how many stomps it'll take before it stops yapping." I glanced down at the dog, a small, fluffy creature that looked like a baby white wolf. It ran past everyone and jumped into my arms. I couldn't help but cuddle it for a second, feeling its little heart race. The blonde girl screamed again, telling me to run. But something in me snapped. Before I could even think about reasoning with them or making a run for it, my body reacted. In an instant, my left leg shot up, and I brought it down hard on the leader's face, slamming him into the concrete. The other two thugs didn't even have a chance to react before I took them down too, knocking them into the ground without breaking a sweat. I then walked over to the girl, who was still on her knees, looking completely shocked. I extended a hand to help her up. "Hey, are you okay?"
I'm better.
But before I could finish, she looked up at me wide-eyed. "I know who you are." Confused, I watched as she pulled off her hoodie and cap, revealing none other than Tandy Bowen, my lab partner. "Great," I muttered under my breath. Tandy's eyes narrowed as she looked at me. "How did you do that?" she asked, disbelief clear in her voice. I paused, mentally kicking myself. I thought she'd been outside when I took down Flash. I decided to play it cool, shrugging nonchalantly. "I just wanted to save my dog," I replied, hoping to steer the conversation away from my sudden display of combat skills. But Tandy was quick. She crossed her arms and shook her head. "This dog doesn't have an owner," she shot back. "He's been in this alley for a while. I've been looking out for him when I walk by." I blinked, surprised she knew that much. But before I could say anything, she smoothly redirected the conversation back to me. "But forget the dog for a second. What's up with you? I've heard rumors you beat Flash, but I didn't believe them. Until now. I didn't have time for this. The expo was happening, and I couldn't afford to get sidetracked any longer." I stepped past her without a word, my mind set on the expo. "Peter," I heard her call after me, but I kept walking, ignoring the questioning look in her eyes. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of interruptions and distractions, I made it to the Stark Expo. The sheer size of the event, the crowd, and the excitement in the air hit me all at once. I took a deep breath. I finally made it. Now it was time to shine. Heading straight inside, I stepped inside the expo. I was instantly struck by the sheer variety of inventions and tech on display. The dazzling array of tech displays instantly hit me head-on, and my mind is amazed. There were gadgets for everyday use, advanced robotics, and even weapons for military application. It was like walking into a futuristic world. My mind was busy trying to take it all in. Everything from weapons to daily life gadgets surrounded me. Before I could even fully process the scene further, I suddenly felt a tug on my arm and got yanked to the side. "Peter, where have you been?" Anya asked, pulling me aside with a very evident frown. I gave her a small smile and shrugged. "Busy with something," I replied, mumbling vaguely, not really in the mood to explain everything. "My mind is back on the alleyway incident." "Busy?" she scoffed, crossing her arms. "We've got a project to present, Peter. We need to make sure everything's perfect." "All right, I understand. I'm sorry for being late." She then sighed, clearly not satisfied, but brushed it off. "All right, well, we need to go over the project one last time. Make sure we follow the right procedures." Before she could finish or I could reassure her, Mr. Modell's voice boomed through the room, calling out our names. "Parker, Corazon, come over here for a second." We both turned, and my heart skipped a beat and my stomach dropped when I saw who was standing next to him. Tony Stark and Norman Osborn. Tony Stark, casually chatting, and Norman Osborn, standing with his usual smirk. I froze. I froze not because of Tony, but because of Norman. My mind briefly flashed back to the Vulture incident and everything that came with it. But I pushed those thoughts aside and straightened up. "You all right?" Anya asked, nudging me. I shook it off. "Yeah, Yeah, I'm good. Focus, Parker. As we approached, Mr. Modell grinned, gesturing to the two men. I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Stark and Mr. Osborn, but I believe they already know you, Peter. Before he could finish, Norman interrupted with a smirk. Know him? Peter's practically family. Peter and my son are practically brothers, he said, his voice as smooth as ever. Norman chuckled first. I forced a smile. Good to see you're doing well after everything, Mr. Osborn. Norman gave me a look, brushing off the mention of the vulture. I'm fine, Peter. Before I could ask about Harry and Emily, Tony stepped in. Wait a second. Peter Parker, right? He asked, eyeing me up like he was trying to place my face. I nodded, curious as to where this was going. You're the kid who tried to pitch me that mini arc reactor idea, aren't you? Tony said, crossing his arms with a raised eyebrow. Thought it was a little ridiculous at the time. I felt my face heat up, but I just shrugged, trying to play it cool. Yeah, that's me. Tony let out a sigh, looking more serious now. Turns out that ridiculous idea ended up saving my life, kid. More than once, actually. I blinked, caught off guard by the compliment. Tony Stark? Thanking me? Mr. Modell and Norman were both equally surprised, and I could feel Anya's eyes practically burning a hole through me. Tony wasn't done, though. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. So, how about you come intern at Stark Industries? I could use a kid with your kind of brain. My jaw nearly dropped. Tony Stark had just offered me an internship, but before I could even process that, Norman chimed in with a grin. Careful, Tony. Don't go stealing Horizon's brightest student. Mr. Modell immediately tried to defuse the situation. Tony, Norman. Norman just chuckled. Genius business move, Stark. Tony waved it off, though. It's something for him to think about. For now, how about we talk about partnerships? Maybe some future projects together. He gave me a wink before walking off, leaving me speechless. Norman followed, but not before saying, I'd also like to work with you and Horizon in the future, Peter. You're quite familiar with the student I've entered into the expo. With that, they were gone. I let out a long breath, and so did Mr. Modell. They didn't exactly ignore me, but Modell mutat. Still, Peter, this is a big opportunity for you. Either one of them could help your future. But remember, it's your choice. He patted me on the back and walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Well, that was something, I mumbled to myself, still trying to process everything. Before I could even think further, Anya snapped me out of it, practically bouncing with excitement. Peter, you know two of the smartest people on the planet, she gushed, not even waiting for me to respond before she zoomed off, muttering something about double-checking our project. Now, left alone, I stood there, weighing my options. Tony Stark or Norman Osborn, both partnerships had their own perks and risks. It was up to me to decide where my future would go from here. Just as I was about to take a moment to breathe, Mary Jane appeared in front of me, catching my attention. She smiled, her eyes scanning the room full of tech. This isn't usually my scene, but wow, all this tech is pretty amazing. I chuckled. Yeah, Horizon's kind of like that, full of surprises. We chatted for a few seconds before the rest of my friends arrived. Jessica Jones, Jean Grey, Clayton Cole, Michelle Jones, and Gwen Stacy all joined us. Clayton immediately became entranced by all the high-tech gadgets, practically bouncing with excitement. I turned to Gwen, curious. So, what do you think of the place? I asked. Gwen tilted her head thoughtfully. It's cool, but Horizon focuses more on engineering and mechanics than chemistry, which is what I'm really into. I nodded in understanding. Yeah, I get that. But that's also why I recommended you come here, to expand your skills across multiple fields. She gave me a small smile. I'm still on the fence, but I'll look around some more before deciding. We all hung around the expo for a bit, checking out different booths, and even ran into Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Like the other proud guardians of young geniuses, they were excited for the expo to begin. After some small talk, Anya came rushing over, grabbing my arm and pulling me aside. Before we all separated, I quickly introduced Anya to everyone. Turning to Mary Jane, I leaned in and said, "Hey, can we talk later? There's something important I need to discuss with you." She raised an eyebrow with a smile. "Sure, Tiger. Catch up with you later." Uncle Ben clapped me on the back. "Good luck out there, kiddo." Aunt May smiled warmly. "We'll be watching." As they went to find their seats, I headed toward the demonstration area with Anya. That's when I ran into two problems: Dr. Octavius and his wife, Liv. In the comics, both of these people would eventually become villains, Dr. Octopus. But right now, they were just regular old Mr. and Mrs. Octavius, which somehow felt worse. Dr. Octavius spotted me almost immediately and walked over with a stern look on his face. "You're the kid Norman was praising earlier?" he asked, his voice gruff and condescending. He scoffed before I could even answer. "Figures." I gritted my teeth, already looking forward to the day when I could knock this guy down a peg. Literally. Before I could shoot back a reply, Liv stepped in, placing a calming hand on her husband's arm. "Ignore him," she said with a soft smile. "Otto's just exhausted. We've been having some challenges with our latest invention." I glanced at Otto, noticing the bags under his eyes. I knew the feeling of projects not working out all too well. "Yeah, I get it," I replied. "Inventions never go smoothly the first time around." Trying to offer some help, I said, "If you want, I could take a look. Maybe offer some advice." Otto scoffed again, clearly not interested. "You? What could you possibly know about advanced fusion reactors?" I raised an eyebrow. "Fusion reactors? Wait, you're working on a sun generator." Otto narrowed his eyes, obviously annoyed that I knew what he was up to. "Yes, I want to harness the power of the sun. Place it in the palm of my hand. But it's proving difficult." I couldn't help but offer my 2 cents, diving into my knowledge of radiation and how it could potentially stabilize the fusion process. Otto initially shut me down, but as I continued to explain, his eyes began to light up. "You're saying using a radiation dampening field at specific wavelengths could—" "No, wait. That might work," Otto muttered, clearly intrigued now. "How do you know so much about radiation?" I met his gaze, seeing the sudden spark of respect in his eyes. "I've done a bit of research in my spare time." Otto blinked, his earlier gruffness fading. I apologize for my earlier rudeness. Your insight is impressive." Before I could respond, Anya yanked me away, reminding me we had our own invention to present. "Come on, Peter. Focus. We're on next." Right, I said, waving back at Otto and Liv. "Good luck with your work." As I followed Anya toward the presentation area, my mind raced, not only about what had just happened with Otto, but also about what was still to come. It was shaping up to be an interesting day. As Anya and I stepped onto the stage, I slipped the neutral interface device over my head. The sleek silver band lit up as it powered on, adding an air of high-tech mystery. But right before our presentation, something, or rather, someone caught my attention from the corner of the stage. It was Harry Osborn, standing next to a man I didn't recognize. Seeing Harry, there was a surprise, especially after everything he'd been dealing with lately. The whole vulture attack, his mom's hospitalization. I hadn't expected to see him at the expo of all places. I headed over, calling out, "Harry!" He turned, a smile breaking across his face as he called my name back, and we embraced. "Hey, Pete," he said, sounding almost like his old self. "How've you been?" I asked, my tone softening. "Sorry I haven't been around. I wanted to check in more often, but things have been, well, you know." I glanced away briefly. "And your mom? How is she?" He waved his hand dismissively. "Pete, seriously. No need to apologize, you did nothing wrong. And she's stable physically, but, she's still in a coma. The doctors don't know when, or if, she'll wake up." He looked away, his voice faltering a bit. Then he straightened, brushing it off. but otherwise we're fine. Hearing the news, I felt a pang of guilt but didn't want to let it show. Instead, I offered a supportive grin. Well, look at you showing up and entering the Stark Expo. Finally using that brain of yours. Huh. Harry let out a genuine laugh. Yeah, funny guy. He relaxed, that familiar spark of mischief flashing in his eyes. Honestly, it's been different, you know? My dad and I spent time together at his lab. After everything with my mom, he's less cold, less angry. He hesitated, searching for the right words. I think it made him realize how much he cares. So he's been teaching me chemistry, genetics, all the stuff my mom used to teach me. I raised an eyebrow, impressed. That's really great, Harry. Seriously, you're a natural at engineering and computers, but now you're diving into physics and biology, too. I gave him a teasing nudge. Guess I should watch out. You might just beat me one day. He laughed again, but there was a genuine warmth behind it. Thanks, Pete. I never felt this close to him before. It's nice. And though a part of me wondered how this would all end up, with Norman's history and that looming goblin destiny, right now I was just happy for him. Harry then led me over to his booth with a grin, clearly proud of his work. His invention was unexpected. I stared at the electric generator setup, complete with tanks holding electric eels that pulsed with a faint blue glow. So, this is what you've been working on? Yeah. Harry's face lit up as he explained. Max Dillon helped with the design. We're harnessing the power of electric eels to create an organic power source. It's clean, renewable, and if we could amplify it enough, we could power entire buildings. As he talked, a series of alarm bells rang in my head. Max Dillon and electric eels? It reminded me too much of Electro, both from the Spectacular Spider-Man show and the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie. But I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the invention itself. I knew Max wasn't Electro yet, so I had time to keep an eye on things. Harry must have noticed me drifting off, and he snapped his fingers in front of my face. Hey, Earth to Pete. Oh, sorry, I said, giving him a half smile. Just thinking. This could be huge if you fine-tune it, you know? Imagine if you could boost the power output even further. It might rival Stark's arc reactor one day. Harry's grin widened. That's exactly what I was thinking. Max and I have been talking about how it could transform modern power sources. But his voice trailed off as he looked away, a bit uncomfortable. My dad. He wants to use it for, weapons. I felt a bit of tension creep into the conversation. Harry's smile faltered, and I could tell he wasn't thrilled about his dad's intentions. Hey, Harry, I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. What you do with this, that's your call. I get that weapons have their place in the world, but it doesn't have to define what this invention means. It could be something incredible for the world. Harry gave a small nod, his eyes softening. Thanks, Pete. It's nice to have someone who doesn't push me in one direction like my dad does. Before we could get any further, a snarky voice interrupted. Well, if it isn't Osborn and the science fair reject. We both turned to see a young man with a smirk and an impressive level of self-confidence. Harry sighed. Pete, this is Amadeus Cho, Tony Stark's latest intern. Amadeus raised an eyebrow, giving me a once-over. So, you're Parker? The kid who thinks he can solve everything with a few equations and no funding. I felt a small smirk tug at my lips. Only on Tuesdays, Amadeus. But it's nice to meet Tony's newest prodigy. How's life as Stark's coffee runner? Amadeus scoffed, and Harry stifled a laugh, the tension in the air easing a bit. As I tried to keep a neutral face, I recognized Amadeus' name instantly. In my world, he eventually becomes the Iron Spider in Ultimate Spider-Man, but he's far more famous as the Hulk. Yeah, no way I'm letting him anywhere near one of my suits. Meanwhile, Harry and Amadeus had launched into a debate over whose invention was better. Amadeus proudly pointed to his own setup, a portable high-energy medical scanner. It looked like a slim, high-tech tablet with built-in scanning capabilities. This, Amadeus declared, can scan injuries and abnormalities at a cellular level in real time. With a smaller footprint than traditional MRI machines, it's designed for field medics and emergency responders. Hospitals, battlefields, natural disaster sites, they'll all benefit. Sure, but how do you power it? Harry shot back, arms crossed. It'll be out of juice by the time you finish a scan unless you're carrying extra batteries or relying on a power grid. Which, he added with a smirk, not every emergency site has. Which is where my tech comes in, Amadeus responded smoothly. It uses a new microfusion cell I helped design with Mr. Stark. It can hold enough power for at least 50 scans, all in this compact design. I nodded, trying to give both of them some credit. They're both pretty revolutionary, guys. I mean, we're talking about clean energy and life-saving tech here. Imagine if you could combine them somehow. They both paused, giving each other reluctant looks before Amadeus finally muttered, "Yeah, maybe." Harry grinned, though it looked like he'd just won a hard-fought battle. I could tell there was a strange sort of respect forming between them, even if they'd never admit it. As Anya and I took our positions at the front of the stage, the audience looked on with curious expressions, some competitors even chuckling at the sight of the trash cans we'd wheeled in. Amadeus rolled his eyes, but Harry offered us an encouraging thumbs up. We introduced ourselves and then unveiled our invention, which we dubbed the nanoswarm system. I activated the neural interface on my head, feeling a slight hum as it synced up. Anya and I took turns explaining how these micro-robots functioned. I could practically feel the crowd's skepticism shifting to intrigue, especially when I powered up the device. The two trash cans burst open, and thousands of tiny, bug-like bots poured out, each about the size of a fingernail. The audience gasped as they watched the bots gather in a swirling, coordinated swarm above the stage. "These are our nanoswarm units," Anya explained, her voice steadying as she gained confidence. "Using the neural interface, Peter can control them with just his thoughts." I demonstrated by willing the bots into a formation, making them stack and shape themselves into various configurations: a wall, a chair, and even a small bridge. They moved smoothly, seamlessly merging and separating on command. The nanoswarm can be applied in countless fields, I added, gesturing to the now-formed bridge the bots had made. Construction, medical aid, disaster relief, any situation where adaptability and precision are essential. They respond instantly to mental commands, allowing a single user to operate thousands of units with pinpoint accuracy. As I thought of a more intricate command, the bots quickly transformed again, morphing into a functioning mechanical hand that lifted a nearby weight, showing off the strength-to-size ratio of our design. The crowd was captivated, a few people even standing to get a closer look. Anya finished up the presentation by saying, "The nanoswarm system is designed with versatility in mind. Each bot is self-sustaining, drawing power through kinetic and solar energy, making them effective in almost any environment." There was a moment of stunned silence before applause broke out. Even Amadeus looked impressed, though he hid it with a slight smirk. Harry, meanwhile, was grinning ear to ear, clearly thrilled for us. The expo judges exchanged nods, noting down every detail as they prepared to announce their rankings. The moment I stepped off the stage, I was swarmed by friends and family, each person eager to congratulate Anya and me on our win. MJ, Gwen, Harry, Clayton, Michelle, Jessica, Jean, Aunt May, and Uncle Ben all had words of pride and admiration. Mr. Modell, our mentor, approached me with a look of pride. "You and Anya did outstanding work, Peter," he said, beaming. I looked over to see Anya grinning as she shared the moment with her parents, her eyes practically glowing with pride. Modell stepped over to offer his praise to her as well. After a few minutes, the judges took the stage to announce the winners. I heard third place go to Amadeus Cho, who acknowledged it with a subtle nod. Harry took second, flashing me a good-natured smile, and finally they announced first place, me and Anya. Applause filled the hall, and it felt surreal, sharing this achievement with all my friends, family, and mentors in the crowd. But then, in an instant, My spider sense flared up, rocketing from nothing to an intense, urgent warning. I barely had time to react before an explosion tore through the venue. Debris, shrapnel, and dust filled the air, and screams echoed all around. I threw myself forward, trying to shield as many of my friends and family as I could from the blast, using every ounce of my speed and agility. As the dust began to settle, I saw the cause of the destruction, and my blood ran cold. Towering above the panicked crowd was a massive creature, monstrous in every way, with sharp bones protruding from its back and fin-like ears. The skin was a sickly green, radiating a gamma energy that was all too familiar. It was the abomination. Chaos erupted, people scrambling to escape, and all I could think to say at this moment was, "Shit!" The initial explosion left my ears ringing, but the devastation around me forced me to stay focused. The Stark Expo, once filled with life, brilliance, and laughter, was now crumbling into chaos. People were screaming, panicking, and running in all directions as smoke filled the air, and flames began to lick the edges of the massive exhibition hall. The abomination roared, his guttural sound reverberating through the collapsing structure. He swiped at booths, pillars, and anything in his path, leaving destruction in his wake. The creature was massive, his gamma-fueled muscles pulsating with raw power. His jagged bones jutted out like natural weapons, and the wild, unrestrained fury in his eyes promised nothing but devastation. This wasn't supposed to happen here. This fight was supposed to take place downtown, far away from Expo, far away from my friends and family. I darted forward, weaving through the falling debris and panicking crowds, my only focus being Aunt May and Uncle Ben. They were the first ones I needed to get to safety. I spotted them near the edge of the chaos, huddling together as chunks of the ceiling began to crash around them. "Peter," Aunt May called out, her voice trembling. "It's going to be okay," I shouted as I reached them, shielding them with my body as another chunk of debris fell. "We need to move now." As I guided them out, I caught sight of Harry being pulled away by Norman Osborn, who was barking orders to his security team. Harry was resisting, trying to break free. "I have to find my friends," he yelled, but Norman didn't care. He practically dragged Harry out of the building. Nearby, I saw Anya and Amadeus being hurried out by Mr. Modell and a slightly injured Tony Stark, who was being carried by Happy Hogan. The sight of Stark unconscious sent a chill down my spine. If he was out of commission, then who else could stop this? Where is the Hulk? But I couldn't focus on that. I had to keep moving. Once I got Aunt May, Uncle Ben, Gwen, and MJ outside to safety, I turned to MJ, my hands gripping her shoulders. "Where are the others? Jessica, Jean, Michelle, Clayton. Where are they?" MJ's face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Jessica was with Clayton earlier. I think near the back," she stammered. "Jean and Michelle. Gwen saw them go to the bathrooms." I turned to Gwen, who nodded. "They were heading that way right before all of this," she said, her voice breaking. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay calm. I had to go back in. There was no other option. "Peter, don't," MJ cried, grabbing my arm. "You can't go back in there. It's too dangerous." I gently pulled her hands off me, forcing a reassuring smile. "Someone has to help," I said softly. "Stay with Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Keep everyone safe." Before she could argue, I was already running back inside. The smoke was thicker now, the heat from the flames oppressive. The sound of cracking wood and twisting metal filled the air as the building groaned under the stress of the fire and the abomination's rampage. My enhanced hearing picked up cries for help amidst the chaos. Somewhere outside, I could hear the faint wail of sirens, but I couldn't wait for them. I spotted Jessica near the back, frantically trying to lift a massive piece of debris. As I got closer, my heart dropped. Beneath the wreckage was Clayton, pinned and unmoving. "Jessica!" I called out, rushing to her side. She was sobbing, her hands trembling as she tried to lift the debris. "It's too heavy," she cried. "He's not breathing. I can't, he's going to die." Not if I can help it, I said firmly, gripping the edge of the debris. My muscles strained as I began to lift, the weight pressing down on me like a truck. Jessica stared at me wide-eyed. Get ready to pull him out, I shouted. Now! Jessica snapped out of her shock, reaching down and grabbing Clayton. As I lifted the debris just high enough, she dragged him out from underneath. Once he was clear, I let the debris crash back down, my arms burning from the effort. Clayton's body was limp, his eyes closed, and his chest unmoving. Jessica knelt beside him, shaking him. Clayton, wake up! She pleaded, her voice breaking. I knelt down, forcing myself to stay calm. Jessica, step back, I said. She hesitated but moved aside as I began chest compressions. My hands pressed down on his chest rhythmically, silently praying that I was doing it right. Come on, Clayton, I muttered. Don't do this. Breathe. After what felt like an eternity, there was no response. My stomach sank, but I refused to give up. I lifted him into my arms and looked at Jessica. We're getting him out of here. Now. Jessica nodded, tears streaming down her face. She steadied herself against me as we made our way toward the exit. Every step felt heavier as I realized the likelihood of saving Clayton was slipping away. The lack of breath, the stillness, it was almost too much to bear. When we reached the edge of the chaos, I handed Clayton to Jessica. Take him to the paramedics, I told her. Stay with him. Jessica looked at me, her eyes full of desperation. Peter, don't go back in there. Please. I have to, I said, my voice firm. There are still people in there who need help. Without waiting for her response, I turned and ran back into the inferno. The building groaned louder now, the flames consuming everything in their path. My lungs burned from the smoke, and the weight of what had just happened threatened to overwhelm me. Clayton might already be gone, and I couldn't even let myself process it. Not yet. I pushed forward, searching for Jean and Michelle, but the feeling of despair clung to me like the smoke in the air. And somehow, I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Jessica's knees nearly buckled as she handed Clayton's body over to the paramedics. Her arms felt like lead, her chest heavy with grief and exhaustion. The paramedics' words were muffled, as though they were speaking underwater, and Jessica barely registered their assurances that they would do everything they could. Her hands, smeared with soot and blood, trembled as she stood there, watching them place Clayton on a stretcher and rush him to the ambulance. She felt hollow, like a piece of her had been left under the debris alongside him. The acrid stench of smoke filled her nostrils, and the chaotic symphony of sirens, shouting firefighters, and crackling flames seemed to grow louder. As Jessica stepped away, she noticed the sheer scale of the response. Police were setting up barricades, firefighters were battling the inferno, and soldiers were coordinating evacuations. The military, why were they here? The sight made her stomach churn with unease, but her thoughts were quickly interrupted. A hand suddenly grabbed her arm, and Jessica yelped, instinctively pulling away before a familiar voice soothed her panic. Jessica, it's me. Mary Jane's voice was urgent but calm, her wide, worried eyes scanning Jessica's face. Are you okay? Where's Peter? Jessica struggled to form words, her throat dry and constricted. She simply lifted a shaky hand, pointing back toward the crumbling expo. He's still in there, she managed to whisper, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Mary Jane's face paled. What? She stopped mid-sentence, already stepping toward the expo, but Jessica grabbed her wrist, holding her back. You can't, Jessica croaked, her voice cracking. He told me to stay with Aunt May and Uncle Ben. He said he'd find Jean and Michelle. He told me to wait. But Mary Jane began, but then she saw it. The hollow, defeated look in Jessica's eyes. The younger girl's body was trembling, and there was a haunting emptiness in her gaze that made Mary Jane's heart sink. Come on, Mary Jane said softly, wrapping an arm around Jessica's shoulders. Let's get you to Aunt May and Uncle Ben. You can tell them Peter's okay. He's gonna find them, Jessica. He's going to make it. Jessica didn't respond, but her body sagged against Mary Jane's support as she let herself be led away. As they approached Aunt May and Uncle Ben, Mary Jane hesitated. "What about Clayton?" she asked cautiously. Jessica's silence was enough. Mary Jane bit her lip and nodded grimly. Okay. She gave Jessica a quick squeeze before turning to look back at the burning expo one last time, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Be safe, Peter. Please." Inside the expo, the air was suffocating, filled with thick smoke and the smell of charred metal and burning plastic. The crackling of fire echoed through the once grand exhibition hall, mingling with the groans of the collapsing structure. I ducked under a beam that had fallen, my spider sense flaring every few seconds as debris rained down from above. I had already pulled a dozen people out, directing them to safety, but I couldn't stop. Not yet. Not until I found Jean and Michelle. My heart was racing as I darted through the wreckage, my enhanced hearing straining to pick up any signs of them. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear the faint roar of Abomination, but it seemed like he had moved on. Good. At least that gave me a little more time. But the deeper I went, the more my thoughts began to spiral. Why wasn't anyone else here? Where was the cavalry? The Fantastic Four? Daredevil? Iron Man? And what about Hulk? He was supposed to be the one fighting Abomination. Where was he? This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. My mind flickered back to my first days in this world. Gaining Peter Parker's memories, balancing life at Horizon Labs, being Spider-Man, and building connections with the people around me. I'd always felt like this was the life I'd always dreamed of. The genius, the hero, the friend. But now I feel hopeless. Before I could spiral further, a flash of red hair caught my eye through the smoke. My chest tightened. Jean! She was standing a few feet away, motionless, staring at something on the ground. As I got closer, the smoke parted, and my stomach dropped. Michelle!
I skjutet, rusing over.
My knees hit the ground as I skidded to her side. Half of her body was scorched. Her clothes burned away in places, revealing blistered skin. But what truly made my blood run cold was the metal rod impaled through her side, dangerously close to her chest. Michelle! I called again, my voice cracking. Hey, stay with me. I'm gonna get you out of here. Her eyes fluttered open weakly, and she gave me a faint smile. Didn't know you were stubborn, Parker. She whispered, her voice barely audible. No, I muttered, shaking my head. Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. I'll get you out and we'll... Peter. Her voice was so soft it was like a ghost of a whisper. I looked up at Jean, desperate for help, but she wasn't moving. Her green eyes were wide, staring at Michelle with a look of utter horror. Jean! I snapped, trying to get her attention. I need your help. Please. She didn't respond. Jean, please, I shouted. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. She pushed me out of the way. The debris. It should have been me. She saved me. What? I asked, confused. Jean, that doesn't matter right now. We need to. I can feel it. She interrupted, her voice breaking. I can feel what she's feeling. The pain, the fear, the death. Her words hit me like a freight train.
I stared her, realization dawning.
You're feeling it? Jean, are you saying? She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. My head. It's like I'm inside her. I can feel her dying, Peter. My breath caught in my throat. Jean's mutation, it had awakened. Right here in the middle of all this chaos.
Phoenix. No.
Later, this wasn't the time. I couldn't think about that now. Jean, listen to me, I said firmly, gripping her shoulders. I know this is overwhelming, but I need you to stay with me. I need your help to save her. Can you do that? She hesitated, her lips trembling, before finally nodding. Okay. Good, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Now help me lift her gently. We're getting her out of here. Both of you are going to make it. I promise. But even as I said the words, a voice in the back of my mind whispered doubts. Michelle's injuries were severe, and I didn't know if I could keep that promise. But I had to try, because if I failed, I didn't know how I could ever face myself again. Once we got her outside, the paramedics immediately rushed to help Michelle. They worked frantically, but their faces betrayed their thoughts. They weren't hopeful. Jean stayed unervingly close to Michelle, dangerously close, like she couldn't bear to leave her side. I noticed her trembling hands clutching her temples, her breathing uneven. Jean's pain was palpable, almost like it was leaking into the air around us. The paramedics suddenly stepped away, their tools and stretcher abandoned. My heart sank. Why are they stopping? I asked, my voice rising. Why are they leaving her? She's still breathing. She's still alive. But no one answered me. I stumbled forward, my voice cracking as I yelled, "She needs help. Don't just leave her." Before I could demand more, Jean grabbed my arm, stopping me in my tracks. "They can't," she whispered, her voice trembling. I turned to her, bewildered. "What do you mean they can't? She's right here. Jean, she's breathing. She's not going to make it." Jean's voice was a quiet, broken whisper, but it hit me like a scream. Her eyes, red and teary, locked with mine. "She's lost too much blood. She doesn't have long." I opened my mouth to argue, to fight against her words, but something about her expression froze me. Jean wasn't just mourning. She was in pain. Real, visceral pain. Then I saw it. Jean's connection to Michelle wasn't just emotional. It was psychic. Her powers were leaking through, tethering her to Michelle's pain. Jean wasn't just feeling grief. She was feeling Michelle's agony. It was at that moment I realized just how hopeless everything felt. My mind raced. Jean Grey in the comics had experienced death before. She'd felt it when her best friend was hit by a car, but that didn't happen here. In the movieverse, her powers had awakened in tragedy too, causing her mother's death. But here, this wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't know what to do. For the first time in my life as Spider-Man, I was paralyzed. All I could do was kneel beside Michelle and confront the reality in front of me. I pulled Jean into a side hug, trying to offer some comfort, and reached out to hold Michelle's hand. The moment my hand touched hers, I felt it. A shock, raw and cold. It wasn't painful. It was something worse. It was death. I jerked my hand back instinctively, gasping. The feeling lingered, cold and unrelenting. What the hell was that? I muttered, staring at my hand as if it had betrayed me. Jean's eyes widened, and she whispered. For a moment, I didn't feel her pain anymore. Her voice cracked, and fresh tears welled up in her eyes. "What do you mean?" I asked, my mind racing. You took it." "Her pain?" Jean said, her voice a mix of awe and sadness. "It was gone for a moment, but then it came back. That's when I realized it. I had unlocked something new. Pain absorption. I could take someone's pain but not heal them, not save them." "You've got to be kidding me?" I muttered, staring at my hands like they were cursed. "I can take away someone's pain, but I can't save them. I can't save her." The weight of that realization hit me like a truck. I wanted to scream, to curse whatever cruel twist of fate had given me this power at the worst possible time. What good was this power if it couldn't save Michelle? What good was I if I couldn't save her? Before I could spiral deeper, I felt a hand on mine. I looked up to see Jean, tears streaming down her face. "Help me," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Please, I can't take this. I can't feel this anymore." Jean was feeling everything. Michelle's pain, her fear, her impending death. She didn't need to go through this. She shouldn't have to experience something so horrifying. I had to do something even if it felt like nothing. I nodded, standing up and walking back to Michelle. Her breaths were shallow, and her face was unnaturally pale. She was trying so hard to hide her pain, even letting out muffled grunts with every shaky exhale. I knelt beside her and took her hand again, this time with both of mine. I closed my eyes and focused on her pain, letting it flow into me. It was overwhelming, like a tidal wave crashing into my chest, but I didn't let go. She didn't deserve to suffer alone. Her breathing steadied slightly, and her pained expression softened. She opened her eyes just a little and looked at me. Her lips quivered as she tried to say something, but the words didn't come. "You're not alone," I whispered, my voice trembling. "You're not alone, Michelle. I'm here." Jean knelt on the other side of her, her hand hovering near Michelle's shoulder but never quite touching. She was too afraid, too hurt. "I'm so sorry," Jean whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I should have done more. I should have saved you." "Stop," I said softly, looking at Jean. "This isn't your fault. Don't do this to yourself." Jean nodded weakly, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. She wasn't going to forgive herself for this, no matter what I said. Michelle's breathing grew fainter, and I felt her grip on my hands weaken. Her lips moved again, and this time, I leaned in to hear her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. A weak smile crossed her face for just a moment before her hand went limp in mine. The world seemed to stop. The sounds of the chaos around us faded, leaving only the unbearable silence of loss. Michelle was gone. I looked down at her hand in mine, then back at Jean. Her face crumpled as she let out a choked sob, and I pulled her into a hug. She clung to me like her life depended on it, her tears soaking into my shoulder. I didn't have words to comfort her. I didn't even have words to comfort myself. All I could do was hold her as we mourned the loss of someone who didn't deserve to die. Jean continued to cry on my shoulder. Time seemed to crawl, each second stretching into eternity. My mind was blank, a void where my thoughts should have been. I wasn't thinking about Michelle or Clayton, or the fact that two of my friends were gone. I was just there, empty. It wasn't long before Jean's parents arrived. She jumped up and ran to them, collapsing into their arms. Somewhere in the distance, I saw Mary Jane running towards me, with Aunt May and Uncle Ben following close behind. I caught glimpses of familiar faces, and Watson comforting her daughter, Captain Stacy standing solemnly with Gwen. And then I saw them, Clayton's mother, Michelle's parents. My heart sank like a stone in my chest. I watched from afar as Jean approached Michelle's parents, trying to explain the unexplainable. The look on their faces was something I'll never forget. A mix of shock, disbelief, and a grief so deep it could shatter the soul. I couldn't bear to be there anymore. Uncle Ben and Aunt May begged me to stay, saying I needed to be with my friends. But I couldn't. Not now. I made sure they'd stay to check on everyone, then disappeared into the nearest alley. That's when it hit me. Not the kind of near-death sensation you might experience in a car crash or a bad fall. This was different. This was death itself. I felt it coursing through me, a cold, unyielding weight pressing down on my chest. It was more than Michelle's pain. It was her death, her ambitions, her regrets, all of it. Death was cold, yet warm. It was dark, yet bright. It was lonely. Two of my friends were gone, just like that, and all I could feel was pain. All I could hear were their voices, their laughter, echoing in my mind. And then roar. A deep, guttural roar snapped me out of my haze. My senses sharpened immediately. It was him, Abomination. I could hear his roar reverberating through the city. A monstrous challenge issued to the world. Pain dissolved into something darker, something hotter, rage. I donned my suit without a second thought. I didn't even think about the logic of what I was about to do. There was no logic. There was only one thought in my mind: death. Abomination had to die. By my hands. I swung through the city faster than I ever had before, faster than when the Osborns were in danger, faster than when Gwen had fallen. My rage propelled me forward, clouding my thoughts. All I could think about was releasing this unbearable pressure building inside me. When I arrived in Harlem, chaos reigned. Abomination was rampaging, a massive car lifted high above his head, ready to crush the military forces below. Not today. I rocketed toward him, slamming both feet into his chest with enough force to send him stumbling back. The car flew from his grasp, but I caught it midair with a web and hurled it right back at him. He roared in fury, swatting it aside like a toy before charging at me with terrifying speed. I dodged his punches, moving faster than he could track. But he was relentless, and his strength was overwhelming. I danced around him, landing quick hits, kicks to the knee, punches to the jaw, but they barely fazed him. Still, it felt good to hit him, to let out some of the anger boiling inside me. Then he landed a punch. Felt like getting hit by a freight train. My ribs cracked under the impact, but I didn't care. I didn't even feel it. Pain was just another sensation, drowned out by the roaring inferno of my rage. I webbed his face, trying to blind him, then shot a web cartridge down his throat. My plan was simple: suffocate him. But it didn't work. He burned through the webbing with gamma radiation, roaring with laughter as he pummeled me into the ground. My bones were breaking, my body screaming for me to stop. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. I kept fighting, kept swinging, kept moving. The sound of a helicopter above signaled reinforcements, or maybe just more collateral damage. But then I saw him. The Hulk. He crashed into the street with a thunderous boom. And suddenly it wasn't just me and Abomination anymore. The two titans collided, trading earth-shattering blows as I scrambled to my feet. I wanted to join the fight, to help Hulk bring this monster down. But my body was failing me. Every step was agony, every breath a struggle. And yet I pushed forward. Hulk was losing. I could see it in the way his punches lacked their usual force, in the way Abomination overpowered him. Something was wrong. Hulk wasn't at full strength. General Ross barked orders at me to assist, but I didn't need his permission. I swung into the fray, landing a kick on Abomination's head to distract him. My attacks were like mosquito bites to him, but I didn't care. I just had to keep him occupied long enough for Hulk to recover. But Abomination was relentless. He swatted me aside like a fly, his fist slamming into my chest and sending me crashing into a building. My vision blurred, and for a moment, I thought it was over. Then I heard it. A voice. Not mine. Not Hulk's. The other. The giant spider inside me stirred, its presence like a dark shadow looming over my mind. Its voice was a whisper and a roar, a promise of power and destruction. "Let me help you," it said. "No," I whispered, my voice weak. "I don't need help. You can't win without me." The other spoke to me. "You need to avenge them." I clenched my fists, fighting against the pull of its power. But the anger, the rage was too much. My vision turned red, and I felt the transformation begin. When I stood again, it wasn't just me anymore. My lenses glowed red, and stingers emerged from my wrists, sharp and deadly. I leapt onto Abomination's back, plunging the stingers into his flesh. He roared in pain, trying to shake me off, but I held on. Gamma radiation surged through me, filling me with unimaginable power. It was intoxicating, overwhelming. Abomination slammed me into walls, into the ground, but I didn't let go. I was no longer Spider-Man. I was something else, something darker, something deadly, and I wasn't going to stop until Abomination was nothing but a memory. The silence was deafening, even amidst the cheers. My body ached. Every inch of me screamed for rest, for mercy, but my mind was the loudest battlefield. The crowd surged forward, their voices full of gratitude and admiration. I stood there, blood seeping from the wounds left by my own stingers, my suit barely holding together, but all I could feel was emptiness. "Spider-Man!" they shouted. Again and again, they chanted my name like it meant something more than just a mask. But inside, I felt hollow. They cheered for a hero, but I didn't feel like one. Heroes don't lose themselves to the kind of rage and darkness I just felt. Heroes don't stand on the edge of becoming a monster and so badly enjoy it. I glanced at the wreckage around me. Buildings were reduced to rubble, cars overturned and burning, the ground littered with debris and destruction. Amidst the chaos lay the motionless body of the Abomination, his chest rising and falling faintly. He wasn't dead. Hulk made sure of that when he stopped me. But the image of him writhing under my stingers, his life slipping away because of me, replayed in my mind over and over again. I clenched my fists, my hands still trembling from the remnants of gamma energy coursing through them. The other's voice was quieter now, but still there, whispering in the dark corners of my mind. You could have done it. You should have done it. Why stop now? You had the power. You had the right. I shook my head violently, as if trying to dislodge its voice from my thoughts. My vision blurred, not from exhaustion or pain, but from the tears welling up. I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this. When Hulk pulled me off Abomination, I had been furious, blinded by my rage. I wanted to lash out at him, to tear into him for stopping me. But his words had cut through the storm. There's only 2 monsters here, not 3. Hulk's voice had been low, gruff, but heavy with meaning. It lingered in my mind, repeating over and over again like a haunting melody. If I had finished the Abomination, if I had let the other take control, would I have become the very thing I swore to fight at the beginning? No, something worse. Hulk jumped away before I could speak. He left me alone with the cheers and the people. I didn't blame him. I wasn't sure I wanted to stay either. The crowd started to close in, their phones held high, capturing the shattered remains of the hero they believed in. I turned away, unable to meet their gaze. I climbed to a nearby rooftop, my movements sluggish and uneven. My ribs ached, my muscles were on fire, but I didn't care. Once I was out of sight, I collapsed onto the edge of the building, letting my legs dangle over the side. The cool night air brushed against my face, but it did nothing to soothe me. I stared at my hands, still faintly glowing with the last traces of gamma radiation. They didn't feel like mine anymore. For a brief moment back there, I was ready to kill, ready to take a life. What scared me most wasn't the act itself. It was how good it felt. No, I loved the feeling. I was human before coming to this world. God damn it. Why is this happening to me? I was 18 years old when I came to this world. I'm not a monster. I shouldn't be able to be ready to kill like this. I'm human. I'm a kid. The other was still there, silent but present, like a shadow that refused to leave. It had whispered to me during the fight, feeding off my rage, urging me to give in. And I had listened. For a moment, I had listened. What does that make me? I thought to myself, am I still Peter Parker? Am I still Spider-Man? Or am I something worse now? Something broken? Am I even human? I thought of Michelle, of Clayton, of the lives that had been lost tonight. I thought of their families, the look in their eyes when they learned the truth. And then I thought of my uncle. Uncle Ben always told me that with great power comes great responsibility. But what happens when that power starts to consume you? What happens when the responsibility isn't enough to stop you from becoming what you fear most? I felt the tears spill over, hot and relentless. I didn't try to stop them. I didn't wipe them away. I just let them fall, one after the other, until my vision was nothing but a blur of lights from the city below. Why does it hurt so much? I whispered to no one. My voice cracked, barely audible over the noise of the city. Why do I feel like I lost myself? In the distance, sirens wailed, a reminder of the chaos I had left behind. My heart felt heavy, weighed down by guilt and doubt. The cheers of the crowd earlier echoed in my ears, but they felt like mockery now. They didn't know what I had almost done. They didn't know how close I had come to crossing the line. I looked out at the city, my city, and for the first time I wondered if I still had a place in it. Could I still call myself a hero after tonight? Could I still be Spider-Man? Or was I just a mask hiding something darker? I closed my eyes, trying to shut out the noise, the memories, the feelings. But there was no escape. The other was there, waiting. It always would be. And that didn't scare me the most. I feel that same darkness as before, and all I want is to bring it out. And that's what terrifies me the most. Special episode: Spider-Man X Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The week following the expo felt like an eternity. Everything seemed so still, yet heavy, as though the entire city were holding its breath. The funerals for Michelle and Clayton were the hardest moments to get through. Aunt May and Uncle Ben stood beside me, silent pillars of strength. But their presence didn't ease the gnawing guilt inside me. At Clayton's funeral, his mother approached me with tears streaming down her face. In her trembling hands, she held a folder, blueprints for sonic devices that Clayton had been working on. He always talked about how much you inspired him. Peter, she said, her voice breaking. I think he'd want you to have these. Couldn't hold it in anymore. The dam broke, and tears streamed down my face as I took the folder from her. Clayton's work, his dreams, now rested in my hands. Felt like both a gift and a burden. After the funerals, I retreated into myself. I avoided everyone. Aunt May, Uncle Ben, my friends, even Eddie. They all meant well, but I just couldn't face anyone. Their sympathy felt suffocating, and their attempts to reach out only made me feel more isolated. Eddie tried to corner me at the warehouse one evening. He wanted to talk, to force me to open up, but I couldn't handle it. I slipped away before he could say much. I wasn't ready to talk, and I wasn't ready to listen. The news of Jean transferring to the Xavier Institute was a surprise. When she told the group chat, I was the first to wish her well. Her decision made sense. After everything that had happened, how could anyone blame her for wanting to leave? But my response didn't sit well with the others. They thought I was being too indifferent, too detached. Maybe I was. Still, I meant what I said. If Jean felt she'd be safer at Xavier's, then I supported her. New York doesn't feel safe to her. And now it doesn't feel safe anymore either for a long time. Not for her, not for me, not for any of us. When I wasn't isolating myself with Horizon work, I threw myself into being Spider-Man. Swinging through the city was the only thing that made sense anymore. The rush of air against my face, the feeling of weightlessness as I soared between skyscrapers. It was a temporary escape from the crushing reality of everything else. And stopping crime? That was my way of coping, my way of making sure no one else suffered like Michelle or Clayton. During one of my patrols, I crossed paths with Iron Man and the Fantastic Four. They'd been away dealing with Dr. Doom and only recently returned to New York. Tony seemed shaken by the attack on the expo, though he tried to hide it behind his usual bravado. He mentioned working on a new system to deploy his suit faster, an understandable precaution given how vulnerable he'd been during the attack. The Fantastic Four were still finding their footing as a team, but they seemed determined to make a difference, even working with the government as well. Reed, Sue, Ben, and Johnny thanked me for handling the abomination while they were away. They even offered to work with me, as did Tony, but I turned them all down. I didn't want to be tied to anyone, not right now. The only person I found myself working with was Daredevil. We ran into each other a few times while I was swinging through Hell's Kitchen. Our meetings were unplanned but always productive. Stopping crime with Daredevil was straightforward. No small talk, no probing questions about my state of mind. It was just two vigilantes doing their job. And for once, I felt like I didn't have to explain myself. Still, even with all the crime fighting, the emptiness lingered. Swinging through the city and working with Daredevil gave me moments of clarity. But when the mask came off, the weight returned. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. At some point, I'd have to face the guilt, the grief, and the questions clawing at the edges of my mind. But for now, I just needed time. Time to mourn. Time to figure out who I was and who I wanted to be. Because being Spider-Man was easy. It was being Peter Parker that felt impossible. While swinging rooftop to rooftop, my mind wandered until something green caught my eye. I know I saw something humanoid. Could this be my first encounter with Scorpion? Or maybe the lizard? My enhanced sight zoomed in on a scene that didn't belong in my universe. For anthropomorphic turtles, casually hanging out in the middle of New York City. No way. I squinted to confirm what I was seeing. Leo, Raph, Donnie, and Mikey, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're supposed to be in the DC universe, not here. What are they doing in Marvel? I perched on a nearby ledge, blending into the shadows, and watched their antics. "Whoa-ho!" Mikey shouted, spinning in circles as he admired the city lights. "This is amazing. It's like the sewers, but with a budget upgrade. So many colors." "Focus, Mikey," Leo scolded, yanking him by the shell before he wandered into traffic. "This is our first night topside. We have rules, no unnecessary risks. But look at everything." Mikey's wide grin stretched even further as he waved at a flickering neon sign. "It's like a glow stick party up here." Raph crossed his arms, smirking. "Let him have his fun, Leo. We've been stuck underground long enough to grow moss on our shells. And Donnie's geeking out too." Mikey pointed to their tech-savvy brother, who was practically drooling over an electronics store window. "Oh, the things I could build with these." Donnie's eyes sparkled as he scanned the hardware. "Look at that processor. Oh, and that motherboard. If I get my hands on them, I could revolutionize." "We get it, Donnie," Leo sighed, rubbing his temple. Meanwhile, Raph eyed a nearby trash can. "Relax, Leo. We've trained for this. Master Splinter drilled stealth into our DNA. Besides, I could turn a trash lid into the perfect hiding spot." "Yeah, but Mikey would just get caught by waving at random strangers." "Hey," Mikey protested. And then, as if on cue, Mikey wandered into the street, waving at a man on a scooter. "Turtle freak!" the man shouted, swerving away in terror and dropping a box. The turtles groaned in unison. "Mikey! What?" "He dropped this thing." Mikey held up the box, tilting his head at the image of a chubby chef on the lid. "It says, pizza?" The word alone lit up their faces. "Food?" Raph asked skeptically. "Better than worms and algae?" Leo opened the box cautiously with his katana, revealing a steaming circle of cheese and pepperoni. "It smells edible," Donnie mused, poking it with his staff. "Only one way to find out," Mikey declared, grabbing a slice. His face froze mid-bite, his pupils dilating. "Well?" Raph asked impatiently. "It's..." Mikey's voice trembled with emotion. "It's beautiful." He stuffed the rest of the slice in his mouth, licking his fingers. "Mine. All mine." "Like heck it is," Raph growled, snatching a slice. Soon, the four brothers were devouring the pizza like they discovered the meaning of life. From my vantage point, I couldn't help but grin. Seeing the turtles' sheer joy over pizza was bizarrely wholesome. "This is the best thing I've ever tasted," Raph shouted. "My taste buds are dancing," Donnie moaned. Mikey pumped his fists. "I love the surface." Their excitement was infectious, but then Leo froze mid-bite, his eyes darting around. "Guys, do you feel like we're being watched?" "Oh crap." I immediately ducked behind the ledge, holding my breath. "Leo, you're paranoid," Raph grumbled. "It's just the pizza." "Maybe you're not being paranoid enough," Leo shot back, his voice low and serious. "We're too exposed here. We need higher ground." The turtles quickly scrambled toward the rooftops, and I followed quietly, keeping my distance. "Yup, definitely the TMNT 2012 version," I thought, recognizing their design and dynamics. "Thank God. I know this version the best. If I remember right, this is the night April gets kidnapped." As if on cue, a scream echoed through the streets. "Let me go!" a girl shouted as she was dragged into a van by a group of thugs. "Never mind. Thanks, universe." I leaped into action, my spider sense tingling as I swung toward the commotion. "Booyakasha!" I heard one of the green figures yell, his voice brimming with excitement. "Ninjas are supposed to be silent," I thought with a sigh. Then again, they're teenagers. Before I could even take another swing at the situation, chaos erupted. "Don't worry, we're here to help," came another voice. One of the turtles, yeah, Turtles, was heading toward the truck, intent on freeing a girl trapped inside. "Ah! Giant frogs!" the girl screamed, her voice shrill with terror. "Actually, we're turtles," the one wearing a blue mask corrected, only to be shoved back by one of the suited attackers. April's dad, Kirby, was standing nearby, his eyes wide as dinner plates as he processed the scene. His realism was kicking in, and it was clear he was already thinking the worst. He clung to April protectively, looking between the turtles, the gang in suits, and me. "Don't worry, ma'am," I said, landing near April and helping her to safety on the sidewalk. "Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is here to save the day." "You're Spider-Man?" April stared at me with stars in her eyes. "Yep, that's me," I said, before trying to get them to safety. "I told you Spider-Man was real," shouted Mickey, practically bouncing in place. "Focus, Orange," I snapped. "Can't use their real names yet, because they haven't told me them yet." The fight started in earnest. I shot a web, yanking one of the attackers off balance and sending him flying into a lamppost. Leo jumped in with twin swords, slashing wildly, but not with enough precision to take the enemy down. "Hey, heads up," I warned, swinging down to kick another Krong out of Leo's blind spot. "Thanks," Leo said reluctantly. Meanwhile, the red-masked one, Raph, was more focused on brute force than strategy, punching and throwing punches like a battering ram. It was almost impressive. Almost. "I take it you nice folks in green are new around here. Step one of facing a gang," I said with a smile under my mask as I then sent a web shot at one of the Krong that was creeping on Raph. "Don't stand still for even a single second. I'll give you all the vigilante rundown once I take out our finely dressed fiends." "I don't need advice from some guy in a Halloween costume," Raph growled after a Krong managed to slip past him. I shot him a look as I dodged a stray attack. "Well, you clearly need advice from someone." The fight was getting messy. The turtles weren't just inexperienced with their surroundings, but also with each other. Every time one of them tried to make a move, another got in the way. "Donnie, watch it," Raph yelled as the purple-masked turtle accidentally jabbed his staff near his arm. "You're the one flailing like a maniac." Donnie snapped back, only to get knocked down by a Krong. "Step 2 of fighting bad guys," I called out, swinging overhead. "Don't stand in each other's way. Coordination matters." "Who asked you?" Raph shouted, smashing his fist into another Krong, his frustration boiling over. "Apparently not you," I muttered, before leaping to block another attacker from reaching April. Kirby, seeing this, thinks things aren't going good, and his only reassurance for his daughter's safety was the cockiness of what sounded like a bunch of teenagers in over their heads. Kirby was always more of a realist than an optimist, so it was almost too easy for him to realize that he was doomed. Step 2, find out if they're truly human or not. Because if they aren't, I said before uppercutting one high in the air, don't pull your punches as much. I don't need to know how to fight from somebody in spandex. Raph yelled before dodging another strike. Raph, the spider guy, is right. Donnie, the smart one of the group, said to his easily angered brother. These guys don't seem human. That means we can hit them way harder, Mikey said before using 3 of them. Now onto our third lesson of the day, my turtle friends. Never take your eyes off the hostages, I said, as I webbed up the entrance to the back of a van they were about to drive near the girl. Ends up terrible when all is said and done. I didn't ask for some lanky red string bean to tutor me in how to crack heads. Thank you very much, Raph said and grunted as he flipped one of the attackers overhead and sent an uppercut to another. Well, I didn't ask for 4 inexperienced turtle people to try and stab people, even if they may or may not deserve it. I leaned down to one of the suits he had webbed against a wall. They seem not to be human, and it seems their stomachs are their weak spots. The ones known as Krong will exterminate the arachnid of unknown species for the interference from the arachnid of unknown species and the ones known as turtles. The man he tied up replied in a dull tone. The orange one, Mikey, was flipping and tumbling, but his playful attitude was getting him into trouble. He tripped over Donnie's staff at one point, barely avoiding a laser blast. Careful, I yelled. With that, the fight continued. I shot a web and pulled April to safety. I was able to save April. Dad, April screamed in my grasp. Oh, I forgot about her father. Never like him in the show. I then see Krong trying to escape in the van with him. I'm too busy to guarding April to stop the van. RA red one. Take out their tires. I ordered the red one. I don't take orders from you. Raph shouted as he tried to free himself from a tight grip. Raph, do what the bug vigilante wants. The blue one shouted as he avoided the onslaught. I don't take orders from you either. Raph screamed and lifted the Krong off of him and threw his weapon, which missed the tires and hit the purple guy in the back. Hey, watch it. You could have cracked my shell, Donnie said, before getting knocked in the head, sending him crashing into the ground. Donnie! Leo yelled for his brother and rushed forward, pushing the suit guys out of the way as the van drove away. Beer room. Oh no! Dad! April screamed. Crap! They're getting away. Orange one. Guard the girl. I ordered as Mickey does what he is told. I then moved to the street, shooting out webs to the back of the van, being sent forward with it. I crashed the party, but that's no excuse for the host to just up and leave. I can help, Donnie said as he rushed to the van. The driver leaned out of the side, aiming some sort of, crap, look out. I immediately shoved Donnie out of the way as a laser was shot at us. Lasers? How do they have laser technology? Donnie shouted. Much less sustainable ones. That's how. April screamed. Dad. I launched a web toward the van, intending to hitch a ride, but Leo's sword came flying out of nowhere, slicing through my line. I hit the pavement face first, groaning as I pushed myself up. The van disappeared into the night, taking April's dad with it. Seriously? Where did you people learn to aim? I yelled at them. From Master Splinter, our rat sensei, Mickey answered with a smile. That's right, this is their first night out. Meaning, they haven't experienced a battle where they work together to fight. We're losing them, Donnie shouted. We need to. Gone. Raph said as we see the last of the Krong disappear. There was no trace of the man or his squad anywhere. It was over, a failure. Damn. I thought to myself. How could I let them escape? I need to find him quickly before. As I was in my thoughts, Raph stomped toward me, anger etched on his face. We would have had them if you hadn't gotten in the way. He had the audacity to shout at me and blame me? Me? I shot back, my voice rising. I'm not the one who knocked out their own teammate and missed the tires. You guys have no clue what you're doing out here. If I wasn't here, April and her dad would have been. I stopped myself, my voice catching. Hey, we're new at this. Mikey interjected, his voice pleading. That's no excuse. I snapped, pointing to April. What, you're going to tell her? Oops, sorry. We let someone you love get kidnapped? You're playing the hero, but you don't understand the stakes. Mikey's shoulders slumped, and even Raph seemed to falter. We've trained for years, Leo started, his voice quieter now. Yeah, and it shows. For one-on-one fights. I cut him off. Out here, it's a team effort, and right now, you're not a team. You're a liability. Leo's face fell, guilt written all over him. He looked at his swords, then at the ground, gripping the handles tightly. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. Look, you've got potential, but potential doesn't save lives. Skill, coordination, and responsibility do. I turned to April, gently lifting her into my arms. I'll get your dad back. I promised her softly before glaring at the turtles one last time. Consider it lucky I'm not reporting you. Go home. Train together. Figure out what it means to protect people. And with that, I swung away, leaving them behind. As the city blurred past me, guilt clawed at my chest. I was too harsh, but they needed to hear it. This wasn't a cartoon. This was real, and it really meant people got hurt. I couldn't let that happen again. I used to love watching the show, but now they're in the real world. I'm in the real world. I can't take these types of risks like I have done before. Especially with what happened to both Michelle and Jessica. This was a responsibility. It wasn't some ideal fantasy. You had a mission, and if you failed, it haunted you. In the show, they didn't kill Mr. O'Neill, but this isn't the show anymore. Things have changed before, and it can happen again. Even the unexpected. After dropping April off at her aunt's house, I loitered on the fire escape, crouching just outside her window. I could hear the heated conversation inside. I told you, Aunt Brenda, Dad's not just missing, he was taken by aliens. And there were these guys. April's voice cracked with frustration. Aliens? April, do you hear yourself? Her aunt countered, exasperated. You're stressed. You've been through a lot. Maybe you just need rest. I don't need rest. I need my dad back, April shouted before stomping off. A door slammed. Moments later, I heard a muffled, "UJ" from inside her room. I tapped lightly on the glass, keeping my tone casual. So, I'm guessing that little talk didn't go so well. April yanked open the window with a huff. Telling her dad was kidnapped wasn't the issue. Telling her it was aliens and that 4 green guys tried to help, that's what made it sound crazy. Turtles, actually, I corrected, leaning my head against the frame. They mean well. She shot me a pointed look. Yeah, well, maybe they should have let you handle it. You could have taken all those guys down and gotten my dad back. Alone. I chuckled softly, shaking my head. Love the vote of confidence, but I'm not so sure about that. April stepped closer, her voice rising with fervor. Of course you could. You're New York's greatest hero. She paused, blushing as her enthusiasm caught up with her. I mean, you are, right? New York's greatest hero? I raised a brow under my mask. You sure we're talking about the same guy? I'm pretty sure most people in this city think I'm a menace. The Daily Bugle definitely does. April's face lit up with defiance. What are you talking about? Everyone loves you. You're like a super celebrity. The Bugle? They print headlines about how amazing you are. I blinked. Seriously? Seriously, she said, her tone exasperated, like it should have been obvious. I scratched the back of my head, utterly thrown. What, did Jonah Jameson have a personality transplant? Or am I in some weird parallel universe where he actually likes me? And how could I not have known this? Is it because I try to avoid social media platforms? I mainly did that because I know how depressing it can be towards my health as Spider-Man. That could be the case. I mean, maybe this is another change. Well, that's surprising. I thought it was mandatory to be disliked by the Daily Bugle. What changes for this to happen? April snapped me out of my thoughts with an impatient stare. So, when are we going to start looking for my dad? We, I echoed, stepping back slightly. Yes, we, she said firmly. I'm not just going to sit here while you go off alone. My dad needs me. Listen, April, I began, holding up a hand. I get it. I really do. But this isn't your fight. And trust me, you don't want to be in the middle of what's out there. Her brows furrowed, and she grabbed my arm. I need to do this. He's my dad. You don't understand. I gently pried her hand off, my voice softening. I do understand. That's why I have to do this alone. I can't risk you getting hurt. But, no buts. You have to trust me on this. I sighed, stepping onto the edge of the fire escape. I'll find him, April. I'll bring him back. That's a promise. Her shoulders slumped, disappointment written all over her face. I paused, giving her a reassuring smile beneath my mask. Leave it to me, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And with that, I leapt into the night, swinging toward the last known location of her father. Unbeknownst to me, April wasn't ready to take no for an answer. As soon as I was out of sight, she grabbed her bag and climbed out the window, determination burning in her eyes. Sorry, Spider-Man, she murmured to herself. I'm not sitting this one out. I perched on a rooftop overlooking the docks, scanning the empty lot below. The cool night air nipped at my exposed fingers as I tapped the side of my mask, zooming in on the location where Snake was set to appear. A few scattered crates, some parked trucks, and flickering floodlights casting eerie shadows. Classic villain meetup aesthetic. If my involvement hasn't messed with the timeline, the turtles should be arriving soon. I exhaled slowly, shifting my weight. The thought of New York's 4 infamous reptilian vigilantes running around in my world was still insane to process. Sure, DC and TMNT had their crossovers, but seeing them outside of a comic panel or cartoon screen, that was next level weird. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are in the world of Marvel. How does that even work? TMNT is part of DC, mostly known for his crossovers with Batman, and the 2012 versions, no less. The ones with April, Jean Grey 2.0 with an extra dash of mutant spice. Psychic powers, unstable emotional outbursts, an annoying love triangle, abuse of addiction of power, and enough baggage to make even Peter Parker raise an eyebrow. Great, just what I needed. Then there were the turtles themselves. Leonardo, the disciplined, tactical mind of the team. Not just a leader in title, but a guy who actually put in the work. He was the only one entrusted with swords, and that wasn't random. The dude valued life more than anyone, and his entire fighting style reflected that. He didn't fight for victory, he fought for balance. If I had to pick a turtle to go toe-to-toe with, he'd be the one I'd least want as an enemy. Raphael, the powerhouse. The one most likely to snap a dude in half if Splinter weren't around to keep him in check. That's why he had Zeus, a weapon meant for defense. Kept his destructive instincts reined in. But what if he ever mastered his temper? He'd be unstoppable. Donatello, the genius. IQ of 240 plus, an absolute tech wizard, and the reason half of their insane inventions even functioned. A bow staff was perfect for him. Not just because he wasn't as physically strong as Raph or Leo, but because he was always thinking. It kept him at a distance, gave him time to analyze, to plan. If there was anyone I'd need to rely on for quick improvisation, it'd be Donnie. Michelangelo, pure potential. The comic relief, sure, but only because he didn't take things seriously. The second he did, game over. He wielded nunchucks, the hardest weapon to master, and that wasn't a coincidence. He had the instincts, the natural reflexes. If he ever focused, he could probably take all of them. And then there was Splinter, the Foot Clan, Shredder, Krong, Triceratons. I was so not ready for all of that. But none of that mattered right now. Right now, I needed to make sure Snake still showed up like he was supposed to. And if all went well, the turtles would arrive right on cue. Hopefully. But first, stealth time. I ducked behind a ventilation unit, quickly switching out my suit. The darker red and blue with a large white spider, not exactly ideal for sneaky business. A few quick adjustments, and my darker, more tactical attire wrapped around me like a second skin. Time to disappear. With one last glance at the empty docks, I activated my stealth mode and melted into the shadows. Now donning my stealth suit, I arrived at the building marked with the same logo as the van that kidnapped April's family. The place looked abandoned, just another forgotten warehouse in the city's underbelly. No movement yet, no signs of life. I checked my surroundings from the rooftop, turning my camouflage on and off, making sure it wouldn't short-circuit from sweat. The last thing I needed was to flicker like a dying streetlight in the middle of an ambush. Not long after, for green figures emerged from the shadows below. The turtles had arrived. I watched from above as Leo gathered his brothers and went over the plan. Wait for the guy, Snake. Take him down and get answers on April's dad. A solid plan, all things considered. But I already knew how this episode played out, so I had the advantage of a cheat sheet. Still, I kept quiet, just watching. No need to make my move yet. Finally, I decided to let them know I was here. A flicker of motion drew their attention. Weapons were drawn instantly. Katana, Zeus, bow staff, and nunchucks raised, ready to attack. Then Leo and Mikey relaxed slightly, recognizing that I wasn't an immediate threat. Donnie, however, narrowed his eyes, shifting slightly between caution and curiosity. "The girl?" he questioned, clearly wondering if I had any information about her. "She's safe. With her aunt," I replied simply. "You can stop worrying about her and start worrying about guys." Leo took the lead, stepping forward.
I'm Leonardo.
These are my brothers, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael. Raph grunted, clearly not thrilled about introductions. TCH, why does the bug need to know our names? Leo ignored him, choosing instead to be the responsible one. Sorry about that. And, sorry if we got in the way of saving the girl's dad. I just nodded, not bothering to assure him it was fine. No point in small talk. Leo, ever the leader, started explaining their plan, but I cut him off. I got it. No need to repeat. That seemed to throw him off for a second, but he just nodded back. And so we all waited. 2 hours of dead silence. 2 hours of nothing but my thoughts creeping in. Great. 2 hours. 2 hours of Rafa's constant complaining. 2 hours of Mikey's endless curiosity about my so-called superhero status. 2 hours of Donatello studying my suit from a distance before finally deciding to ask about its tech. Then, finally, Snake arrived. Leo straightened up, preparing to try Captain Ryan's monologue about his bold and daring plan. But by the time he got halfway through, his team had already taken off. Again, I was the only one who stayed. I glanced at Leo and shook my head. Time is of importance. This isn't a game. Then, without another word, I jumped off the rooftop, following the other turtles. The moment Snake stepped out of the van, the turtles surrounded him. But he was faster than expected. A laser gun appeared in his hands, and he bolted toward the driver's seat. Or at least he tried to. Before he could even touch the wheel, I tore the engine out of the van and tossed it to the side. The sound of metal crunching against pavement filled the air. Snake's eyes widened in sheer disbelief. What they? He reached for his laser gun. I ripped the van door clean off and tossed it away like a piece of trash. Snake panicked, raising the gun to fire, too slow. I grabbed his wrist, squeezing until I heard a sickening crunch. The laser gun clattered uselessly to the ground. Before he could even cry out, I grabbed him by the collar, yanked him out of the van, and slammed him against the wall. Silence. I could feel the turtles staring at me, their gazes heavy. What? I asked, not bothering to look at them. Raph smirked. You know, I think I do like you. Leo, on the other hand, was less amused. Breaking his wrist was too much. I ignored them. Snake wasn't going to talk if we just asked politely. Pressing him harder against the wall, I started my interrogation. Where's the girl's dad and the scientists? Speak. While still having vocal cords to speak with, shaken, Snake started rambling. He spilled everything, the Krong, their experiments, and their base of operations. But before I could press further, a noise cut through the air, clattering metal. Trash cans tipping over. All of us turned toward the sound. Watch him, I ordered, releasing Snake and sprinting toward the disturbance. I expected Krong, maybe a backup goon. Instead, April? I hissed. What are you doing here? April froze like a deer in headlights. The girl, Donnie echoed from behind me. I turned, realizing the turtles had followed me. That's when it hit me. Where's Snake? We all whipped around, only to find empty air. Snake was gone. A frustrated growl built up in my throat before I snapped at the others. Find him. April started to offer help, but I pointed at Donnie. Make sure she doesn't go anywhere. I searched, but it was too late. Snake wasn't here. Frustrated, Leo and Raph regrouped with me, explaining what happened on their side. We used Snake's van, Leo said, sounding confident. Once Donnie fixes it, we drive straight into the enemy headquarters. I narrowed my eyes. You do realize Snake heard your fake plan, right? Exactly. Leo nodded, smirking. That's the reason why they'll be so focused on the front, they won't notice us sneaking from the back. I crossed my arms. And what if they move the scientists to another location? Leo froze, the confidence drained from his face. I didn't think of that. Raph let out a snicker. And this guy's our leader? Of course you didn't think about it, hence the reason why I brought it up. I'm not even sure what happened to the scientist Krog was stealing all over New York in the show. I thought to myself bitterly. The only reason I thought of this now is because of the chances of the scientists being from Marvel that, before we could continue, Mikey's voice cut through the air. MOM. I shut my eyes, exhaling slowly. I'm so tired. Leo and Raph took off toward where Mikey, Donnie, and April were. And just like that, our night was far from over. And I'm so very tired. After explaining the basics of mutant genetics in a roundabout way, without actually mentioning mutagen, I left, heading toward an unspecified location somewhere in the city where the Krong were holding scientists captive. Wait! Leo called out, but I didn't stop. Couldn't. There were too many possibilities running through my mind. Scientists, mutagen, the Krong, and if they had gotten their hands on any key figures in the scientific community, the consequences could be disastrous. Rika, contact the Fantastic Four, Reed Richards. Connecting now. Rika was something I had been working on for a while, an AI assistant that originally belonged to Peter Parker. Gideon and Rika were usually a joint force, but after what happened at the expo, Horizon had been put in the doghouse, relegated to handling schoolwork and planning logistics. Rika was different. I had upgraded her, pushing her beyond her beta phase. She was still a work in progress, but the goal was to make her something on par with Jarvis. A few moments later, I was on speakerphone. Spider-Man? It wasn't Reed. The voice was feminine and urgent. Yeah, who's this? Susan Storm. Have you heard anything about Reed? He's gone missing. Panic. The edge in her voice told me everything I needed to know. Damn it. The Krong got him? How? A meeting? An ambush? I might have something, I said, keeping my tone neutral. But I need something from you first. What? Dude, this isn't the time. Another voice cut in, aggressive and heated. Let me talk to the insect. Listen here, Webhead. If you're holding out on Reed's location. Ben. Johnny. Enough. Susan's voice snapped through the speaker, silencing both of them. Go ahead, Spider-Man. Tell us what you know. I exhaled, steadying my thoughts. I need a list of missing scientists across New York. Names, locations, dates, everything you have. Pause. Done. Susan replied instantly. We'll send it over as soon as we compile it. But after that, you need to tell us where Reed is. I need to confirm it first, Susan. If my intel checks out, I'll need all hands on deck. I ended the call before she could protest, my mind already moving a mile a minute. New destination, Hell's Kitchen. It was time to get some help from an expert. Arriving in Hell's Kitchen, I made my way toward the apartment of Matt Murdock. Two thoughts lingered in my mind. 1. Please let him be home. 2. Please let him not be pissed about our last disagreement. Rika, ping Matt Murdock's home address, I said, already cutting across rooftops. Location acquired. Plotting the optimal route now. When I reached the building, I perched on the ledge across the street and ran a scan. He's not home, I muttered, watching the readouts. Probably on patrol by now. I took a second to consider the patrol routes Matt usually favored. We'd worked together enough times that I had a rough idea where he might be at this hour. That's when it hit me. Flicker. Sharp and subtle. Spider sense. Pinged from above. I didn't hesitate. I climbed swiftly, launching myself onto the rooftop, and there he was. Daredevil. The red suit. The billy clubs. The unmistakable DD emblazoned across his chest. I thought you were going to portal into Midtown, he said flatly. Daredevil and I had worked together a few times in the past. He'd even taken it upon himself to mentor me a little, showing me smarter patrol routes, stealth techniques, and the subtle difference between justice and vengeance. The problem? I didn't know squat about what happens in his comics or shows, for that matter. Our partnership? Strictly professional. I replied, walking to the edge of the rooftop and taking a seat. Got sidetracked. Scientists have been disappearing all over the city. It's not random. It's coordinated. I've heard the whispers, he said, stepping beside me, his gaze fixed on the streets of Hell's Kitchen below. But it hasn't touched my turf directly. Hard to be in 10 places at once. The ones behind it are called the Krong, I said, watching his expression carefully. And they've taken Reed Richards. That got his attention. I'm heading to meet the Fantastic Four. We're going after them. Daredevil turned away, shaking his head. I don't do group projects. I don't need a group member, I said, standing. I need someone who knows how to slip past high-tech security and leave no trace. The Fantastic Four are amazing, but subtlety isn't exactly their strength. And the friends I've made recently, they've got heart, but not enough experience. He paused, didn't respond immediately, so I pushed just a little further. I can't infiltrate a Krong base alone, Matt. Not if I want to get those scientists out alive. I'll send you the location where everyone's meeting. You don't have to stay. Just show up. Do what you do best. He didn't reply. Didn't need to. I turned, launched off the rooftop, and swung into the night, leaving the quiet rooftops of Hell's Kitchen behind. Outside the Krong base, I crouch low, studying the structure. It looks exactly like it did in the show. Same dark, metallic walls. Same cold energy pulsing from the place. Same eerie hum that makes your skin crawl if you listen too long. Which also means the same flaws and entry points if you're careful enough. I'll need to scale the wall, sneak in undetected, and locate the captured scientists without triggering every armed robot inside. And as much fun as it would be to cut loose and go full beatdown on some brain-controlled robot suits immune to bullets, I can't afford to slip up. Not when people's lives are on the line. That's why I waited for the rest of them to arrive. The remaining members of the Fantastic Four showed up first, suited in their classic blue uniforms, each one iconic in their own way. The only thing missing was their leader. So Reed's in there? Asked Ben Grimm, aka. The Thing crossed his rock-solid arms. Yeah, I replied, crouched at the edge of the rooftop, scanning the Krong hideout below. And he's not the only one. Johnny Storm, already flaming up into the Human Torch, clenched his fists. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go rescue them. Before he could launch forward in a blaze of heat and impatience, Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, surrounded him in a glowing force field. Do you ever think, Johnny? She asked, lowering him gently back to the rooftop as he flamed down with a frustrated sigh. Ow, Sue, what was that for? Johnny protested, rubbing his shoulder. If we charge in blindly, they'll either relocate the scientists or kill them, she said calmly, glancing toward the base. And that includes Reed. I nodded. Exactly. We need to know where they're keeping them before we make a move. Ben gave Johnny a light but pointed smack on the back. Hear that, hotshot? We don't even know where the eggheads are yet. That's why the plan is to let Spiderman sneak in, get eyes on the hostages, and we take it from there. Quietly, Sue added. And then we squash the brain dudes in suits? Johnny pointed while questioning. They're called the Krong, I corrected as an aside. Whatever, Johnny huffed, crossing his arms. Still don't get why we're just sitting here doing nothing. I didn't look at him, just kept watching the base. Because I'm not that confident in my stealth skills. Even with the stealth suit, this isn't a solo op. I'm waiting for backup. I thought we were your backup? Johnny asked, raising a brow.
No, Irraplia.
You're my insurance policy. Extra muscle for when things inevitably go loud.
Ben Choinkled.
So who are we waiting for? Iron Man?
Hulk?
Dr. Doom? Maybe? Funny. I smirked faintly. We're waiting for Daredevil. And 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There was a beat of silence. Then Johnny burst out laughing, nearly doubling over. Ha! Okay. I can believe the guy from Hell's Kitchen. But turtles? Giant talking turtles? Man, that's rich. Your disbelief might not last long. A voice called from the shadows behind us. Everyone turned. Daredevil stepped out into the moonlight, calm and composed, his crimson suit blending into the night. Yo! Johnny said with a grin, waving. Daredevil ignored him, his head turning slightly. Come out already. I can hear you breathing. All eyes turned again as, from the far side of the roof, four figures emerged from the shadows: Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, and Michelangelo. Each one wore a different colored bandana and carried their signature weapons. Johnny's jaw dropped. No way! They're real? Giant? Ninja? Turtles? That is so awesome! Dude, I know, right? Mikey chimed in, twirling his nunchucks excitedly. Ben raised a brow. So, this is the team. I stood up slowly. Yeah, this is it. Daredevil crossed his arms. Then let's get to work. Leo steps forward, standing tall with katanas strapped to his shell.
I'm Leonardo.
These are my brothers, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Raphael. Each of them gives a wave or a nod in turn, their distinct personalities written all over their body language. Daredevil walks over to Leo and clasps his hand firmly in a shake. They hold it for a moment longer than most would. Then Daredevil leans in slightly, his voice low and calm. I can hear your heartbeat, Leo. You're nervous. It's okay. Just remember, your brothers are looking to you for the plan. You've got this. Leo blinks, a little surprised by the insight, but nods. Thanks, he says quietly. I won't let them down. Meanwhile, on the other side of the roof, name's Ben Grimm. The thing rumbles, offering a massive rock hand to Raphael. Raphael, the red-masked turtle replies, gripping the hand tight enough to impress even Ben. Ben squints at him. You know, always figured the only green monster running around New York was the Hulk. Raph snorts. Funny. I always figured my bros and I were the only freaks in town.
Ben chinkles.
Well, welcome to the club. You like bustin' heads too? Kid. That's basically my job description. The two exchange a proud nod of mutual understanding, already vibing like old drinking buddies in a dive bar brawl. A few feet away, Johnny's doubled over in laughter as Mikey launches into an impression of Captain America doing stand-up. And then Cap's like, language. Dude, it was just the word. But I don't think that even counts. Mikey's arms flail like windmills. Johnny gasps between laughs. Okay, I like you, man. You are hilarious. Mikey's face lights up. Finally, someone who's not scared of a talking turtle. Johnny fist bumps him without hesitation. Are you kidding? You're like a ninja and a meme legendary. Mikey whispers, can we be best friends? I already assumed we were. Back near the ledge, Donatello walks up to me quietly, his face serious. Hey, before we got here, we went to check on April, the girl you saved earlier, just to let her know what was going on. But she wasn't there. My eyes narrow slightly. That wasn't in the show. But then again, I saved her, which wasn't in the show. So I changed something. She made a different move entirely. She must have gone after her dad, I muttered. If Kirby's a single dad, and she's all he's got, they probably kept trackers on each other's phones. Without looking, I muttered, Rika, track April O'Neil's phone. On it. Rika replied smoothly in my mask. Signal acquired. Location pinged. Sending coordinates now. I scanned the location. She's very close, still within the Krong's perimeter. Be right back, I said. I jumped up and began to swing away. I can help. Before Donnie could finish, I was long gone. A few minutes later, April O'Neil crept through the dark warehouse, clutching her phone, heart racing as she followed a faint signal trail that belonged to her dad. Suddenly, a blur swept past her. Wah! She yelped, only to find herself webbed up neatly and hoisted into the air. Wah hey. What the heck? I dropped down in front of her, mask hiding my face, but my voice was calm. You know, sneaking into a Krong-controlled sector alone isn't exactly a genius move. April glared. Let's get you somewhere safer. Back on the rooftop. Everyone turned as I landed with April slung over my shoulder in a web cocoon like a confused burrito. I found the redhead trying to solo a rescue op, I explained, gently setting her down and cutting her free. April. Mikey rushed over to her, nearly tackling her in a hug. Guys, she said, clearly relieved. Get me out of this. Yes. Give me one moment. Donnie was quick to help, but one glare from me made him stop. Or not, hee. Ben crossed his arms. So we got one more civilian, and a lot more reason to wrap this up fast. I agree with Rockhead. Raph commented in agreement. Daredevil nodded. Then let's move. Quiet and clean. All right then, Leo? I said, which surprised the blue bandana turtle. Leo inhaled slowly, calming his nerves as all eyes turned to him. All right, he said. Here's the plan. Simply put, the plan went like this. Step 1. I sneak in first. The warehouse's walls were high and metallic, like something out of a sci-fi horror movie. Cameras and patrols made climbing a bad idea. So, I scouted the perimeter, found a loose panel near the ground, and squeezed in. Easy. Well, easy if you count knocking out half a dozen Krong bots without sounding the alarm. Left them gift-wrapped in webs, hanging like evil disco balls from the ceiling. Once the coast was clear, I whispered into my calm, "Showtime." Seconds later, shadows moved like water as Daredevil and the turtles dropped in silently behind me. Step 2. Sneak through the human-sized vents. Yes, human-sized vents. I don't know who designed this place, but it's either lazy security or a very optimistic HVAC specialist. Regardless, we crawled through, me in the front, Daredevil behind me, Leo and Donnie next, with Raph and Mikey bringing up the rear. Mikey kept whispering vent puns until Raph threatened to shove his nunchucks somewhere not PG. While moving, I activated Rika. Rika, locate Kirby O'Neill and any other heat signatures that look, well, human-based. Analyzing, pinging signals now. I've got 6. 6 scientists? Confirmed. And you're not going to like who they are from my estimate. Rika knew me so well. She was right. When we finally peeked down through one of the grates, I felt my stomach drop. The makeshift lab was crowded with brilliance and a little bit of pure nightmare fuel. Miles Warren, Kurt Connors, Spencer Smythe, Kirby Anew, Reed Richards, and Hank McCoy, aka Beast from the X-Men. Yeah, that Hank McCoy. Blue fur, glasses, and currently solving a problem faster than my high school physics teacher ever could. I blinked, staring at the scene. Great. Now the X-Men are part of this rescue, which is cool. In theory, if it didn't mean 3 people who later go full villain mode just got a face full of Krong tech and mutagen. Miles Warren, aka the guy who literally clones Spider-Man like it's a hobby. Kurt Connors, only one chemical spill away from Lizard but 2.0. And Spencer Smythe. Dude invented spider-killing robots for fun. So now they've seen the Krong, the tech, and probably even sniffed some unfiltered mutagen. Yeah, absolutely. Freaking. Fantastic. I whispered to Daredevil beside me, Sue. Good news, found the scientists. Bad news. We just fast-tracked the worst parts of scientists ever. He whispered back, are you planning to panic or improvise? Little from column A, little from column B. Leo looked at me from further down the vent. What now? We stick to the plan, I said, forcing my voice steady. Get the scientists out first. Clean, quiet. Before the Krong notice we're here. Boom. An explosion rocked the other side of the warehouse. Or before Johnny gets bored. I sighed. Outside, minutes earlier, Snake slinked through the shadows like he belonged there. One of the Krong's top human operatives. Spotted just in time by April O'Neil, still webbed up like a Halloween decoration and hanging off a rooftop like, well, a very annoyed piñata. Her eyes widened. Wait a second. Snake? Oh no. With a sharp inhale, she shouted down at the rooftop crew below. Hey, guys. That guy, he's with the Krong. The Fantastic Four turned to look up. Ben squinted. She talking about that shady-looking dude near the alley? Before any actual plan could be formed, Johnny smirked. Time for a little barbecue justice. Johnny, wait. Too late. With a foam, Human Torch took off like a comet.
Moments latte.
You know, for someone working with evil brain aliens, you've got terrible cardio. Johnny taunted, soaring low and fast, weaving between pipes and vents. Snake didn't respond. He just kept running until he didn't. Suddenly, he spun mid-stride and raised a strange blaster. Krong tech, purple and glowing. Playtime's over, Fireboy. Boom! The blast slammed into Johnny's side, sending him crashing into a parked truck full of something flammable.
Kathodom.
A fireball burst into the sky like the 4th of July. Car alarms. Smoke. Chaos. Inside the base, Raph groaned, looking up through the vent. That doesn't sound stealthy. Nope, I muttered. The turtles? Daredevil. And I tensed as Krong voices echoed below. Explosion detected. Alert status heightened. Intruders must be neutralized. Krong units began moving. Great, I whispered. Johnny's turned a silent op into a Michael Bay audition. Outside again. Johnny lay groaning under the scorched wreckage. Okay. Not my best landing, he muttered, coughing up smoke. Suddenly, 6 Krongbots surrounded him, weapons aimed. Target acquired. Human anomaly. Flammable. Eliminate with prejudice. Guys, little help? He said, holding up his hands. Boom! The ground shook as Ben Grimm, aka the Thing, came charging in, sending 2 bots flying. Hope you weren't planning on sneaking in the rest of the way, he grunted, cracking his knuckles. Sue Storm appeared a second later, forming a shield between Johnny and the nearest bot. She glared at her brother. Nice going, Johnny. Real subtle. Johnny coughed. What? I totally had him.
Ben snorted.
Yeah, he had you in the blast radius. Inside the Krong base. Boom! Another explosion shakes the facility. Pipes groan above. Sparks fly. Leo and the others exchange glances. Showtime, I whisper. Using the chaos from outside, we move fast. 2 vigilantes in red and 4 turtles in shadows, slicing through halls and ducking security cams like ghosts. By the time Krong realizes something's up, we're already in the main lab. Inside, 6 scientists, confusion in their eyes. Reed Richards turns the moment he sees me. Where are the others?
Johnny. Sue.
Ben? I give a small shrug. Outside. You'll know who caused that explosion if you hear a flame on. Reed groans. Johnny. Behind him, a large, furry blue figure steps forward. Curious, Hank McCoy, Beast, murmurs. Am I the only one shocked by the presence of talking turtles? 3 of them look mildly surprised. Mikey, however, dude, you look like a superpowered teddy bear from the comic book I read. Beast chuckles. Hank McCoy, pleased to meet you. I know who you are. I cut in, hand extended. Big fan. You once rewrote Newtonian physics for your college thesis. Before Beast can respond, Kirby steps forward. Where's April? A quick ahem from Daredevil makes me turn. Right. She's safe, I say. Hung up on the web for now. We'll get you all out. With that said, Donnie motions for me to help with the door. Donnie and I work fast on the sealed doors, avoiding any alerts, until, of course, the system screams anyway. Intruder detected. I groan. We were so close to doing this quietly. As I said that, the door finally swings up, freeing the scientists inside, along with a bunch of Krong bots coming from all over. Raph and I take point, cutting a path through waves of Krong bots. Sparks, shrapnel, and bits of chrome fly in every direction. Beast joins the front line with graceful power, flipping and punching like a blue hurricane in glasses. We reach the outer wall just as I seal the doors behind us with layers of web. And that's when they surround us. The remaining Fantastic Four descend like the cavalry. Sue throws up a shimmering barrier, blocking incoming blasts of purple energy. Ben roars into the fray with fists like wrecking balls. Shoulda stayed in bed, he grumbles, cracking a Krong bot like an egg. We're getting out, I shout. Leo, get the scientists to safety. Things. Make us a back door. Ben smashes a wall with a single hit, rubble falling like rain. Johnny, cover fire. Flames shoot over our heads like fireworks. Mikey whoops like he's on a roller coaster. But before we can step through, something moves. Snakeweed emerges, vines writhing, eyes glowing with new power. What the? I blink. He was mutated. He didn't have the mutagen. Mutagen? Do you mean that blue canister? Johnny speaks up, hovering above us, fire crackling in his palms. I kind of blasted one near him, and he started screaming from it. Ugh, curse you, Johnny, I muttered as I saw Snakeweed get closer and closer to us. Snakeweed roars, ready to unleash. Whoosh! He's immediately engulfed in a wave of fire. Screeches, crackles. It smells like burnt salad. Snakeweed's remains sizzle on the ground. The heat still ripples in the air. Mikey winces. Welp, grass versus fire. Not really a fair matchup. Johnny lands beside the scorched remains. Guess I'm not just hot. I'm super effective. Hilarious. Can we go now? Raph yells, shooting daggers at Johnny and Mikey, who are still high-fiving mid-battle. Sue sighs and raises her hands, summoning a solid, invisible force bubble around the scientists. This way, she commands, guiding them safely through the gaping hole Ben created. The thing brings up the rear, shielding the group like a walking brick wall. I feel like I did more demolition than rescue, he mutters. Par for the course, Leo smirks, flipping over some remaining Krongbots and taking one down with a sword to the face. Once everyone's clear, I shoot a web line and take to the rooftops. I'll grab April, I called out before saying, meet at the Baxter building. Minutes later, I found her where I left her, webbed to a tall utility pole, arms crossed, giving me the look only someone very done with this day can pull off. You seriously left me like this? It was for your safety, I said while thinking. Also mildly hilarious. She huffs as I cut her loose. Come on, I say. Your dad's waiting. At the Baxter building, the group regathers. Exhausted, scraped up, and more than a little chaotic, but victorious. April rushes into Kirby's arms. They embrace, finally safe. Sue checks on the scientists. Beast shares notes with Donnie and Reed while Ben leans against a wall, arms crossed. Johnny lounges in a floating fire chair, casually munching on a protein bar. Mikey's beside him, already pitching a fantastic Pizza Brothers crossover idea. And Raph is just off to the side, grumbling, but with the tiniest, barely there smile. All in all, the mission felt too easy, suspiciously easy. The evil scientists Warren, Smythe, and Connors left without resistance. No last-minute schemes, no surprise betrayals. Just walked away. Not before Reed assured them he'd be placing a protection detail on each one. I even caught him quietly considering a call to fury. Beast, meanwhile, stepped aside, phone in hand, speaking low and politely. His words calm but precise. Probably Xavier. I decided not to get involved. Kirby was already deep in a hushed conversation with April, talking about getting out of the city. Before she could say anything, I stepped up. If the Krong come back and they will, April, and you are their target. Keeping her on the move won't protect her or you. It'll just make you all harder to reach when things go bad. Reed nodded. He's right. It might be safer for you and her to stay in New York. Here you've got backup. Even Beast offered to take her somewhere safe, though April, finally really looking at him, let out a startled squeak. Ah, yes. Understandable reaction, Beast chuckled, adjusting his glasses. She quickly apologized, while the turtles rallied behind her. Leo and Donnie laid it out logically. Raph made it sound like a challenge. Mikey just offered pizza. Eventually, with all of us backing the same play, Kirby caved. They'd stay. After a few final words, the turtles whispered among themselves and started to slip away. Daredevil had already vanished into the night. No surprise there, probably to watch over the scientist heading home. Not really our style to hang in the limelight, Leo said. We'll stay close, watch over her. From the shadows. Shadow bros, Mikey added, pulling his mask down like a ninja movie extra. Reed and Sue offered to escort the O'Neills home personally. That calmed Kirby. Beast was the next to go, but not before walking over to me, offering a sleek silver card. If you ever need sanctuary or education for your, shall we say, gifts, Xavier's doors are open. I nodded, taking it with a silent thank you. Then I left. No flips, no rooftop sprinting. Just a quiet web swing into the city's cool night air. These past few days? Crazy, brutal, absolutely insane. But for now, maybe I've earned a break. Sort of special end. Peter, it's time for school. Uncle Ben's voice echoed from the stairwell. I was already dressed and awake. Spider suit hidden under my clothes, tech glasses resting on my nose. Just another morning pretending things were normal. As I stepped out of my room, I could hear Uncle Ben and Aunt May talking downstairs. Their voices were low, but not low enough. He's been acting so distant since the expo, Aunt May murmured. Can you blame him?
Uncle Ben replied.
He invited them, May. I think he feels responsible. He's not wrong. Even when Aunt May lightly scolded him for saying that, he wasn't wrong. I do feel responsible. I invited Clayton and Michelle to the Stark Expo. I got them killed. Today was the first day back at school. The first day seeing everyone again. Since the expo was attacked. Since the abomination tore through steel and glass like cardboard. Since screams drowned out music and lights. They pulled Clayton's and Michelle's bodies from the wreckage. And then, there was the other. Whatever that thing inside me was, it wasn't just Spiderman. I've never felt rage like that. I've never been angry like that. Gamma radiation, energy absorption, and claws that sprouted from nowhere. They were gone as fast as they came. No lingering strength, no mutation. My radiation levels were stable and unchanged. No Hulk symptoms. I've run every test I could. The stingers? Gone. Like they'd never existed. Like they were born of instinct and grief and something primal. And as for the other? Nope. Not diving into that abyss. I thought to myself. Not yet anyway. There's too much already. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The Fantastic Four are here. Daredevil. Krong, mutants, and possibly MCU-level threats soon. Maybe even comic-level chaos just waiting around the corner. It's a lot. But today isn't about aliens or monsters or science experiments gone wrong. Today's about something scarier. School. Time to face the music. Time to face everyone. Honestly, I've been avoiding them all. Eddie's been trying to talk to me ever since that night. Ever since I started wearing the mask as well. Gwen and MJ always looked worried. Always hovering near the edges of my silence. Jean, I didn't even try convincing her to stay. As she made her decision, I thought, I'm not going to change it. And mainly because I didn't want to talk about anything at the moment. Didn't want to explain. Didn't want to feel anything. I just wanted to be alone for a while, as both Spider-Man and Peter Parker. And no one's even talking about Jessica Jones. She's been ghosting all of us. Probably because she unlocked her powers. But that's a whole different storm. One I'm not ready to deal with yet any sooner. When I finally walked through the school gates, I felt it. The looks, the whispers, the heavy silence that follows grief like a shadow. Gwen was the first to reach me. She tried to talk. Really talk. Asking what I'd been doing all week, what happened at the expo, and how I was holding up. I brushed it aside. I wasn't ready to unpack it. Not in the hallway. Not with everyone listening. Not yet. Flash saw me too. He didn't give me one of his usual stink eyes. In fact, for the first time, he looked like he wanted to say something. Maybe even offer his condolences. But I didn't give him the chance. I kept my eyes forward, ignoring him the way I always used to. Not out of hate, but because it wasn't his fault. It was mine, and he couldn't fix this, and neither could I. No one could. Then came the surprise of the day. Tandy. She walked up to me between periods, her eyes calm but focused. She didn't flinch, didn't act awkward or fake sympathetic. "I'm sorry about Clayton and Michelle," she said so simply and honestly. She also thanked me for helping her that day with those guys and the dog. I didn't know how to respond. My brain stuttered trying to find something that wasn't just a nod or a shrug. "Thanks," I finally said, then added, "But you don't need to thank me. My uncle always told me, with great power comes great responsibility." She smiled at that, a small, knowing kind of smile. "And where did you learn to fight? If you don't mind me asking." "My mom. She was a great fighter, taught me how to handle myself. Yes, I inherited a few of her moves." I glanced away. That is a truth and a lie, I don't know for sure, but Mary used to practice in the backyard of our home before. Tandy didn't press any further. She just nodded, gave a soft goodbye, and walked away. And that was it. The rest of the day was blurred by lectures, looks, questions I didn't answer, and people I didn't really hear. Now it's time for Spider-Man. Because Peter Parker is still broken. Spider-Man doesn't have time to be. As Spider-Man, I'm just going through the motions. No major crimes. No robberies. No world-ending threats. Just peace. It's weird. Too weird. I swing lazily between rooftops, my body moving on autopilot. No alert pings from Rika. No urgent police chatter. The city is calm, which naturally is when the universe decides to punch me in the face. Crash. Boom. An explosion thunders across the city, rumbling through the rooftops like a god had just slammed a drum the size of Manhattan. A bolt of pure lightning lances up into the sky, sending out crackling tendrils in every direction. Streetlights flicker, alarms start screaming, and a few windows crack from the shockwave. I halt mid-swing, perching on the edge of a building. Spoke too soon. I try to call Uncle Ben to let him know I'll be coming home later than usual, thumb shaking as I tap the speed dial, but no signal. Not even static. Just dead silence. I frown. Okay, either I'm out of range, or something's jamming every radio wave in this part of the city. My gut says the latter. I sprint and leap across a rooftop, launching another web line as I head toward the chaos. Okay, think. Could be Thor. Maybe he got drunk and skipped the Bifrost exit, I muttered while swinging. Or Electro. It could be Electro. Pause. Wait, no. Could also be Storm, Living Lightning, Surge, or someone new. Great. Electricity-themed roulette. I finally arrived, and it's bad. People are running and screaming in the middle of the street. Cars are flipped, windows shattered, and concrete cracked from blasts of raw power. I swing down for a closer look, and I see him. A man glowing with electricity, arcing yellow-white volts spiraling around his body. He floats a few feet off the ground, unhinged laughter echoing through the block. Sparks shoot from his hands, frying streetlights and turning traffic lights into smoking wreckage. He throws a blast into the street, boom, flipping a car like a toy. Another zap hits a fire hydrant, exploding it into a geyser. People scream, "Help! Where are the police? Somebody call Iron Man. Where are the Fantastic Four?" The man snarls midair, twitching. Shut up. I need Stark. And Connors. They did this to me." His eyes pulse with wild, manic energy. A woman stumbles and falls nearby, and he raises a hand. I said shut up. The bolt launches, but I'm faster. A web line snaps out, grabbing her and yanking her clear as the bolt explodes where she was a second ago. Thwip. A second later, his mouth is webbed shut, arms tangled together. He jerks midair, turning in surprise, catching sight of me sticking to a nearby wall. His eyes go wide. Spider-Man? He mumbles through the web. I drop to the ground between him and the civilians standing tall. The one and only, I say calmly, adjusting my stance. Electricity dances around his body like a living storm. I'm going to give you one chance. I point at him with purpose. Stand down. Not until Connors and Stark fix this. Electro screamed, the electricity on his body flaring wildly. The webbing binding his mouth and arms burned away in a sharp crackle of static. I stayed where I was, both hands raised in a non-threatening posture. "What did they do to you?" I asked, trying to calm him, even while thinking, this smells like an amazing Spider-Man 2 or Spectacular Spider-Man situation.
Max Dillon, freak accident, fried nerves, electric-powered rage machine.
This. He shrieked again, arms thrown wide as bolts of lightning surged out of him in all directions. A nearby transformer exploded in a fireball. I can't stop. Not since that damned expo. I can't stop generating power. It's too much, Max Dillon explained as I gritted my teeth. Of course it happened at the expo. I muttered under my breath before inching forward. Okay, let me guess. You were probably a janitor or technician cleaning up one of Connor's experimental gene labs at the expo. And what, there were eels involved. You got zapped during the chaos when Abomination showed up and everything went nuts? So now you blame Stark for the accident and Connor for throwing away the expo at all. Yeah. How did you know that? Electro's power sputtered, just slightly. I gave a small shrug, my voice steady. Simple. I'm something of a scientist myself, I said nonchalantly as he blinked. I then kept going softer now. And listen, me, Stark, and Connors, we can help you. We want to help you. You just have to stand down. Let us fix this. For a moment so fragile it hurt, he actually considered it. Then he twitched, his eyes glazing like static over a TV screen. You're a scientist? Just like Stark? Just like Connors? He asked, and I shook my head. Yes, something like that. Before I could finish, Electro spoke again. Just like Osborn. That name hit like a punch. Osborn? What does he have to do? He said he could help me, Electro shouted. Said he could fix me. Said he was a man of science. He lied. They all lie. You all lie. The electricity pulsed, wild and out of control now. Stark, Connors, Osborn. And especially you. Wait, I never lied to you. I'm trying to help you, I shouted. We can fix this, hell. I'll bring in Reed Richards if I have to. Just turn down the juice and you think you can order me around. And oh, one orders me now. The bolt hit before I could finish. Acting on instinct, I leapt into the air, the concrete beneath my feet shattering under the force of the blast. Come on, Electro. We don't have to do this, I called out, swinging between lamp posts trying to draw him away from the crowd. Hold still, he snarled, tossing another electric arc that scorched the side of a building. I darted left, up, sideways, any direction to keep him focused on me. His rage only seemed to fuel his power. And Electro? He yelled mid-chase. I like that. Yeah. Max Dillon is dead. I'll be known as Electro. Great. I just named a supervillain. I groaned. Below, I saw people ducking behind cars. Emergency responders scrambling. Fires are starting to burn out of control. I'm going to crush you, Spider-Man, he howled. Then I'll go after every lying scientist. And I'll be the hero when this is done. Another bolt, narrow miss. The heat grazed my suit. I flipped onto a wall and started wall crawling in zigzags to make myself harder to hit. I kept shouting back at him, trying to keep him angry, but focused only on me. Osborn messed you up, Max. But we're not all like him. No answer. Just more sparks. More rage. The upside? The more he chased me, the less he hurt anyone else. Downside? I was running out of steam and fast. Dodging lightning is not easy. I don't know how comic book Spider-Man does this so effortlessly. Or the movie Spidey. Or TV Spidey. I'm just me, an inexperienced Spider-Man, and I don't think I can keep this up for much longer. He was floating through the streets of Queens as I led him toward a more open area. I had one idea after another racing through my head. Drowning him briefly crossed my mind. Short-circuit the power, stop the threat, but I pushed that thought away. Electro was a victim of the expo, of a system that didn't protect him, a system Osborn had under his control. He needed help, not another superhero beatdown. But the truth was, That might be the only way to stop him. If he kept burning with power like this, he'd fry the entire Manhattan power grid. A flash sparked, and a bolt of electricity struck my web line, burning it to ash. I fell fast, slammed into the pavement feet first, then rolled with the momentum. My back hit the sidewalk hard, but I forced myself up just in time to see Electro glide overhead, crackling with energy, smiling. "I'm better than you. I'll always be better. You're nothing to me," he bellowed. "Because I am powerful." I stood up, eyes on him, one hand out. "Listen to me, Electro. We don't have to do this," I said. "There's a way to fix this, Connors, Reed Richards, Stark, hell, even me. But this is only hurting people." He paused midair, his expression unreadable. I spotted it, an open water valve just a few feet from us. An idea sparked. "You leave me no choice," I whispered, and fired a web line at the nearest fire hydrant. I yanked. The hydrant tore off with a hiss, and water sprayed out in a massive geyser. I launched myself up the building to avoid the blast zone. Electro hovered, confused. "What do you think that'll do? You think I won't just..." ZZZZT. A stray arc of electricity jumped off his body and touched the water. Electro seized up instantly, locking in midair, spasming. "What the hell was that?" he shouted, trying to float back. "Water and electricity don't mix, genius," I yelled as I double-webbed him, yanked hard, and slammed into him with all the force I could muster. My fist connected with his jaw, sending him flying. He crashed against a billboard, then dropped to the ground with a thud. I landed on a lamppost and webbed him up tight, layer after layer, spinning around him in rapid circles until he was wrapped head to toe. He twitched, still dazed, but he was still floating. And he was burning through the webbing. Steam hissed from his skin, and strands sizzled away. I dropped down, yanked a second hydrant free, and redirected the flow at him with my hands like a fire hose. The water drenched him again, slowing his discharge. Click. New web cartridges in. "You can't hold me," he growled through clenched teeth. "This pathetic webbing won't stop me, Spiderman." I looked down at my right hand, then wrapped it in thick webbing like a glove. Time to do something stupid. I scaled the wall again, lined up my shot, and leapt just as the last of the webbing burned off. Electro never saw it coming. Crack. My fist met his jaw again, this time with mostly everything I had to knock him out. He spiraled midair, lost control, and smashed through a storefront before crashing to the pavement. Sparks danced across his twitching form. I hit the ground, panting. My arm trembled from the hit. I coated him with fresh webbing. If I was lucky, he'd be out for a while. But I wasn't done. I needed samples. I found a supply store nearby, probably blown open during the fight, and snagged a couple of clean glass vials. I collected a small sample of his blood and sealed it with webbing. Curiosity struck. Is his ability to generate electricity purely from mutation? Could this be used for sustainable energy? I had to know. Spider sense. Too late. He blasted through the last of the webbing like a living thunderstorm and zapped me at point-blank range. The surge hit me like a truck. I screamed as pain ripped through my spine. My limbs locked up. I couldn't even tell which way was up. I moved my right arm, my left leg responded. I blinked. My head jerked upward. Everything was out of sync. He took off. I tried to swing after him, but the moment I fired a web FZZZT, my shooter sparked, fried beyond function, just like in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Electro burned them out. He was gone. I lay there on the pavement, stunned, breathing hard. My gear? Toast. My body? Out of alignment. Good news. I had Electro's DNA. Bad news. I had to get to Horizon like this. Halfway to Horizon, my body finally stopped glitching. No more random spasms or cross signals. I flexed each limb one at a time. Arm, leg. Good. Thank you. Healing factor. I muttered under my breath. That was starting to get really annoying. I might just make a spider mobile next time this happens. I web sprinted. Wait. Oh right. I whispered, blinking. My web shooters were still fried. But as I instinctively aimed a hand to swing, a strand of webbing shot out. Not mechanical, organic. I stared at the sticky strand still connected to my wrist like I just remembered I had a second set of lungs. Right? Organic webbing. Totally forgot about that. Thank God for radioactive spider mutations having backup features. Just got to make sure to not overdo it or the web will snap. Using that, I slung my way the rest of the trip, moving a little slower to conserve strength. When I finally reached Horizon Labs, I made my way to my lab. Quiet, still, a rare kind of stillness in the city that never sleeps. I peeled off what remained of my scorched spider suit, what wasn't already fused to my skin or crumbling into static, and tossed it in a bin. My ribs still ached. My fingers were shaking. Good thing I kept a few spare costumes tucked away. Always be prepared. I moved to check the samples I'd taken from Electro, webbed over the open edge of the light bulb. Hopefully there was enough for analysis. I could already imagine ways to apply the data for not just a cure. Wireless energy transfer? A new power source? A non-lethal version of his ability for rescue ops or combat. I could have Miles Morales' powers without the extra spider bite. I started talking to myself, not out of nerves but habit. Alright, get the sample stable. Check its radiation levels. Then, that feeling hit like a chill under my skin. Spider sense. Subtle and low hum, but consistent. I'm not alone and I turned slowly. The shadows shifted, but not on their own. Impressive, Mr. Parker. For a skinny kid, you sure are packing, a voice said. It was smooth, calculated, and familiar. I moved on reflex with a straight shot with my fist out in center mass, which should have knocked him through a wall. But my body was still worn down, and he wasn't just anyone. He caught my wrist effortlessly, and he twisted. Aikido, my mind thought as the move flipped me over. I hit the air upside down, but muscle memory kicked in. Midair, I twisted and fired a kick. My heel slammed into his chest, sending him stumbling back. He caught himself on the wall and looked up with an eye patch. Eye patch, I thought to myself before taking a closer look. Black trench coat, black skin color, and a scar? Shit, it's Nick Fury. My pulse skipped, as I knew what that meant. Shield. No, Hydra's inside shield. And now they know who I am. They know. I thought the words almost escaped my mouth. F. I stopped myself before shouting, my brain spiraling. Fury straightened up and chuckled. Very impressive, but a lot of improvement can be made, he said, brushing off his coat like I hadn't just tried to cave in his chest. Now, how about you calm down, so we can have a very important conversation? I lost my flight stance for just a second, which was a mistake. He's not the greatest spy on the planet for nothing. Why are you here? And how did you even get in? I growled, pissed that he got past Gideon, the AI security system that helps run the school. Nick Fury just casually dusted off his coat like he didn't just get booted into a wall. Interesting, he said. You ask why I'm here and how I got in. But not who I am, like you already know. I clenched my fists. Nick Fury, Director of the Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division. SHIELD, for short. A covert counterterrorism and intelligence agency tasked with maintaining national and global security. His eyes didn't flinch, but I could see it. He was surprised. Maybe he thought my parents told me something. Maybe he figured he could intimidate me. Then I added, I'm not considered the smartest person at Horizon for nothing. You think I can't dig through the government's digital closet? Fury's face twitched just slightly. You know hacking into a government network is illegal, he said, now all business. And you know breaking into a lab partnered with the Baxter building, in the middle of the night, creeping into a teenager's workspace dressed in black, doesn't exactly scream innocence either. Fury smirked. Touché. Then he nodded slightly. Yes, my name is Nick Fury. I run SHIELD, a global espionage agency. Espionage? I echoed, raising an eyebrow. Figures. I'm guessing you used one of your famous spy tricks to sneak past Gideon and into my lab. Correct. Well, color me flattered. Must have taken the world's greatest spy to break in. I smiled, but then narrowed my eyes. But that still doesn't tell me why you're here. Fury's smile didn't fade. Are you seriously threatening me, kid? Yeah, I said without flinching. Because if you don't start talking, it's not going to end well for you. Click. I froze. Cold metal pressed against the back of my head. My eyes widened as I turned slightly and saw her. Black Widow. She didn't trigger my spider sense. Not even a blip. Was it because she didn't have hostile intent? Or because I'm still fried from Electro? Or is she just that good? I thought, staring down the barrel of her pistol. She looked like Scarlett Johansson, which made the moment both surreal and really bad for my odds. I wouldn't move if I were you, Fury said, stepping closer. Sure, we know you can dodge bullets, but not from this close. Then he gestured behind me. Oh, and for the record, I'm not the greatest spy alive. She is. I swallowed thickly. I didn't lower my guard, but I did back off slightly, my eyes flicking between the two of them. Now, Fury said, his tone suddenly smoother. Can we talk like civilized people? Black Widow slowly retracted her gun, still watching me like a hawk. Like I said earlier, I growled, stepping back further. You don't get to break into my lab and then ask for a polite sit down. That's not how this works. Still, no spider sense. Either they genuinely weren't a threat yet, or my sixth sense was still short-circuiting. So I didn't relax, not for a second. Fury's expression finally settled into something resembling professionalism. Then he said, I'm here to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. No thanks, I said as I looked to my computer, and I didn't even look up as I sifted through the electro DNA samples, already sketching out blueprints for a suit mod. Something insulated and to survive a second round. I have no interest in the Avengers. Fury, of course, didn't budge. Huh, I figured you know something about that. But humor me anyway. He took a step closer, arms crossed. It's a task force. I'm assembling people, extraordinary people, to face threats that ordinary men and women can't. And you want a kid on your super secret death squad? I replied, my voice deadpan, my focus on my data display. I already knew his answer for this. Are we seriously going to pretend you're just a normal kid anymore? He asked, raising an eyebrow. I smirked, still not looking up. Humor me, director. Sure you don't want to join Spider-Man, Fury said casually, with that smug little smirk that let me know he thought he had me. I looked bored, annoyed. Proof. Just one word. One challenge. We've got footage of you changing in that alley off 63rd, and a dozen stills of you deadlifting steel beams in that abandoned warehouse you like to tinker in. Fury didn't even blink. Add that to your nightly unauthorized vigilante patrols, and you're racking up a fine list of felonies. Let me guess. You hacked the security feeds. Real heroic of you. I laughed dryly. I waved it off. Illegally obtained evidence is inadmissible in court. Try again, Mr. Government. Fury smiled at that. A rare, tight-lipped grin. You're just as sharp as your father. That made my fingers freeze over the console. I tried to play it cool, but Fury saw it. Of course he did. What does my father have to do with this? I thought, damn it. I should have looked deeper into this world's Richard and Mary Parker. Fury leaned in just a bit. You're a smart teen, like your dad. And you're right, we can't exactly toss you in a cell. But let's say we drag you into court. Your secret identity becomes front-page news. I turned around slowly, eyes narrowing. And I work for one of the best labs in the world. I've got Reed Richards and Tony Stark on speed dial. Not to mention a Hulk. I stepped closer to him. You out me, you lose a lot more than just a court case. You'll have Stark, Richards, and every Avenger Initiative candidate questioning your morals for putting my family in danger for your benefit. Fury raised his hands in surrender. All right, you got me, kid. You're right. And I apologize for the threat. His tone dropped, more serious. I'm just offering you an internship, training, real experience. So that's what this is? Join up, or you'll accidentally leak my name to the press. Fury shook his head. No, I wouldn't do that. Not to Richard and Mary's kid. There it was again. My parents' names. Twisting in my gut like a snake made of guilt and curiosity. Stop reacting. Don't let it show. Don't let him bait you. Too late. Fury clocked it instantly, like he was flipping through my mental file in real time. You don't know much about your parents, do you? He said, his tone softer now. I didn't answer. He nodded. Thought so. Well, let's add that to the offer. Come work for S.H.I.E.L.D. You'll get the training, and I'll tell you everything I know about your mom and dad. I narrowed my eyes. Seriously? Using my parents as leverage? That's low, even for a guy who wears an eye patch indoors. You're not exactly making this easy, kid, Fury said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Look, you sign on, and you get access to state-of-the-art tech and training with the best in the world. You want to grow stronger? Be smarter? Save more lives? We can help you. He gestured toward Widow. Besides, Widow here, yeah, she was trained by your mother. That's why she's the best at what she does. I blinked. What? My mom trained Black Widow. What was she? Batman? Out loud, I said. And in return, what does S.H.I.E.L.D. get out of this? Fury's smirk dropped, replaced by something real. Peace of mind. He looked straight at me. I knew your parents, and I don't want their ghosts whispering at me about how I left their kid in the dark. Nick Fury said before continuing. And I dealt with your parents. They can be incredibly stubborn. Behind him, Black Widow actually chuckled. A small laugh, but it cut through the tension like a knife. I'd forgotten she was there, but that told me everything. My mom meant something to her, and that made this whole thing real. What did my mother do? I had to ask. Fury's expression hardened slightly. She worked for us. We gave her missions, assignments, and she carried them out. How many people did she kill? My head was down as my fists clenched. There was a pause. You won't have to kill anyone, Fury said softly. How many? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Fury sighed. Too many to count. Or estimate, honestly. A beat. But the number she saved? That outweighs it. In spades. What else did she do? The words felt hollow in my throat, but I had to know. Infiltrated drug rings. Terrorist networks. Sabotaged operations that would have killed thousands. Contained threats most people will never even hear about. The silence that followed was heavy. I swallowed, gathered myself, then looked up. Sorry, Fury. No matter how much I want to know about my parents, I'm not joining S.H.I.E.L.D. I turned back to my desk. I've got a life here. Friends, family. A city that needs me. That depends on me. Fury didn't move. You sure? What? You say you can protect your city? But can you really? His voice dropped, knife sharp, as he took a slow step forward. Tell that to Clayton, Michelle, everyone who died during the expo. That hit like a sledgehammer as my voice came out low. Leave. Fury didn't argue. He just stood, adjusted his coat, and spoke as he turned toward the shadows. You got too big too fast, kid. Now everyone's watching. And if you keep going like this, he paused. They'll come for you, and not like me. Worse. He tossed a small hard drive on the table. Everything you need to know about what I'm offering. Good night, SP Peter. He disappeared. No footsteps. No door creak. Just gone. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I gasped. Then a cough. I spun around, firing a web shot instinctively, stopping just short of her. Black Widow. She didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. You have your mother's eyes, she said softly. The first words she'd spoken all night. Your mother was a good person. Think about the offer, Mr. Parker. And just like Fury, she was gone. My heart was hammering as my thoughts raced. My lab could be bugged. Not just my lab. Horizon. School. Warehouse. My house. My home. God. He probably bugged them all. I groaned, rubbing my temples. One problem at a time. I turned back to my workstation, trying to focus on Electro's DNA sequence. But my eyes kept drifting to the hard drive as I gritted my teeth. Ah, fine. I'll send this to Tony or Reed. Let them deal with Fury's recruitment pitch and the Electro problem. I picked it up and gave it a once-over. Plain. Basic. No branding. But I was too exhausted to dig in. Too tired to decode anything beyond the surface. Everything was moving so fast. Too fast. I sat on the table in my lab and lay back, just for a second, just to rest my eyes. Then I blinked awake and realized, I'm not even home. Of course, no rest for Spider-Man. I dragged myself back to the lab table and muttered, freakin' Electro and freakin' Fury, and got back to work. Today was a pain. First, school. Still my biggest obstacle. Honestly, I don't even know why Uncle Ben and Aunt May insist I keep going. I have friends. I'm the smartest person there by a long shot. And frankly, I've saved the city at least 3 times this month alone. But hey, algebra. Though, Tandy's been talking to me more. Nothing major. Just hey, what's up? And the occasional compliment or glance when she doesn't think I'm looking. Something. Second, Shield. God, they are so annoying. Half of them are secretly HYDRA. The other half are Nick Fury, offering internships that come with spy drama and emotional blackmail. I lied about hacking into their servers, and now Fury's upgraded their security to the point where I can't even access my own basic files on the organization. Meaning, I lost access to anything related to my parents. Which, yeah, sucks. What I have gathered so far from home, not SHIELD, is that my dad was some kind of genius scientist. Robotics, engineering, biology, tech, hacking, you name it. The man was a polymath. And Mom? From what I've pieced together, she was a Taekwondo instructor. Used to teach at the same dojo I once copied some moves from. But knowing she trained Black Widow, she was way more than a martial arts teacher. She was a pro-level spy. And a damn good one if Natasha's reaction was anything to go by. Eventually, I need to talk to Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Really talk. About my parents. About the truth. But that's a problem for another day. Because third on the list, Electro. I still have his DNA samples and I've been researching non-stop. I contacted Connors about his involvement. He confirmed he knew a Max Dillon and briefly worked with him on a project. And of course, I called Tony Stark. Because it was his expo after all. He tells me to deal with it, as he's busy dealing with his own problems at the moment. Didn't say how, didn't say when. I didn't ask what he was dealing with, as I have my own problems to deal with. I'm already juggling enough, especially with a living lightning bolt flying around the city screaming about betrayal and burning down scientists. So after school, I went straight to Horizon, straight to my lab. Straight to the only place where I can focus. My mission. Find a way to stabilize Electro. Fix what was done to him. Find out how Osborn is involved. Reverse the mutation if I can. Control it if I can't. And for that, it's time to bring out the stealth suit. Because today, I'm breaking into Oscorp. Again. Though more problems arise, Horizon is having its own problem. Thanks to 2 major problems. A lot of internships and workers have withdrawn from Horizon because of recent events that happened. Expo is one, but the Baxter building is having to withdraw their partnership due to their own problems. Meaning the money has been withdrawn, adding a few other problems, and it's easy to say Horizon is falling apart. I haven't seen Modell, but I know he's working hard to keep Horizon afloat. And here I am, working on a way to cure a dude with the power to generate enough power to demolish a city. Maybe more if time goes by any sooner. From the reading I got off Electro, he shouldn't be able to generate this much power so fast. Even in TV shows and comics, Electro didn't grow so fast. Meaning Oscorp has done something to Max and altered his DNA further. Time for Spider-Man to get answers, but not before getting the last few details down on my countermeasure to deal with fighting Electro. Now wearing my stealth suit, I slipped back into Oscorp like I had done before. A mistake in hindsight. Back then, I thought I was clever, smart, untouchable. But now, I know they probably let me in. I slipped through vents, avoiding guards, turrets, and sensors. Reached a terminal on the Upper East Wing, Level 3, where they kept their special projects locked behind retina-lock doors and fireproof steel. I jacked in, bypassing their encryption with my custom software. Then I found it.
Max Dillon.
Electro. He wasn't a freak accident to them. He was a project to them. The footage showed it all.
Max in a containment pad, screaming.
Crying. A dozen scientists are standing around him, measuring surges and amplifying voltage. And standing right there in the lab, clipboard in hand,
Dr. Otto Octavius.
Before I could even think, the door hissed open, and speak of the devil. Otto entered the lab, scanning a tablet. Before he could scream or call security, I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him into the wall. SP Spiderman? He gasped, glasses falling crooked. I tightened my grip. Tell me what you did to Max. Now. He winced, trying to catch his breath. We experimented on his genes. The one regulating the mutation. It was for science. For power. He was dangerous. You made him dangerous. I shouted, stepping closer. You used him. He trusted you. Otto's face twisted into something unreadable. Shame? Denial?
Bride?
I didn't get to find out, because that's when the alarm blared. Intruder alert. Sector 3. Lockdown initiated. Red lights flooded the room. Steel doors slammed shut. My exit routes? Gone. I ran, vaulted over desks, blasted open the door with a web pull, and dove into the vents. But at every turn, another security door was sealed. Gas hissed through the chambers. My HUD warned me of synthetic sedatives flooding the air. They were hurting me, like they knew my every move. And then, I heard it. Clap, clap, clap. I turned to see a shadow at the end of the hallway. Stepping through the smoke, crisp suit, perfectly combed hair, smirking like the devil himself. Norman. Freaking. Osborn. I thought bitterly. He gave me a slow, deliberate smile, like he had all the time in the world. Well done, he said smoothly. Very clever. But you're not the only one who studies patterns, Spider-Man. I didn't move. My heart pounded in my ears. You've broken into my building, 3 times now? Left with a few of our things. Fried a few circuits. I have to admit, I underestimated you. Guess we're even? I said, forcing the words through clenched teeth. Because I overestimated your morality. He chuckled, deep and calm. You don't get to my position by clinging to morality, son. You get here by understanding power. How to control it. How to create it. I glared at him. You created an unstable monster.
No.
Max was already unstable after the expo. We simply accelerated the inevitable. And now, he's proof of what's possible. You turned a human being into a ticking time bomb, I growled. And now you want to do it again. Osborn's smile widened. What makes you think we haven't already? Suddenly, I understood. This wasn't about Max. He was a test run. I was the main course. They didn't just want to stop Spider-Man for breaking in. They wanted to recreate him. And just like that, the lights flickered, and everything went dark except for Osborn's glowing smile. Shall we talk? Or should I send in your welcome party? Osborn started listing off all the things I stole. The spiders, the goblin green, the tech flight schematics. Okay, guilty on those. Not proud of it, but yeah, I took them for the right reasons. But then he kept going. Fried circuits, malware injections, selling secrets to Stark Tech, breaching internal servers, shutting down R&D projects. What? I stared at him, completely blindsided. I didn't do any of that. Probably should have, though. That's when the real question hit me. Who else has been breaking into Oscorp posing as me? Osborn leaned forward with that same venomous smirk he always had in every version of him across comics and movies. But here's the good news, Spider-Man. We can work together. We're already preparing to neutralize Electro. You just need to cooperate. Or turrets descended from the ceiling, and dozens of armed guards stepped into the room, all of them carrying tech straight out of Star Wars. Guess that was the or else part of the conversation. I readied myself for a fight I probably wasn't going to win. Flash. The lights went haywire, blinding white pulses flooding the room, followed by knockout gas hissing from the vents. Gah! Even with my enhanced senses, I couldn't make out anything. My vision lit up with stars, and my body screamed for air. Before I could even reach for my web shooters, someone grabbed me. Fast. Professional. Next thing I knew, I was being pulled across the rooftop skyline like a ragdoll. We didn't stop moving until we were halfway across the city. I hit the edge of a rooftop and staggered, coughing through the last of the gas. My enhanced senses were scrambled. Eyes burning, head pounding, ears ringing. Then I heard it. So, you're the amazing Spider-Man? A voice teased with a sultry edge. I'm glad we finally got to meet face to face. I blinked through the pain. Black cat, silver white hair, skin-tight black suit, eyes like daggers behind a glossy mask, and a smirk that could break hearts and bank vaults. You, I muttered, stumbling upright. You were the one breaking into Oscorp? She gave a mock bow. Guilty. Well, partially. Let's just say I'm not the only one stealing from Osborn. That stopped me cold. Wait, what? Who else? And who are you? She didn't answer. Instead, she shot a flashbang right at my feet. Even with my reflexes, the enhanced light seared my retinas. Ack!
I skjuted. Doubling over.
Eyes like yours? Gotta love that superhuman biology. She called with a laugh, already leaping backward. We'll have a proper chat soon, Spider. I promise. And just like that, she was gone. Grappling hook launching her into the skyline. I was left blinking against the afterimage, eyes screaming from the overload. I'm gonna need to make something like adjusting goggles or something for intense lights, I muttered, sitting down and rubbing my face. But one thought stayed with me. If Black Cat wasn't responsible for everything Osborn accused me of, then who else was? I thought to myself before continuing. And I just met Black Cat. Awesome. Before remembering what Norman said about subduing Electro, I quickly rocketed off to either find Max or make a cure. Hopefully, I'm not too late.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.